Good morning. Convene the Board of Control meeting for February 20th, 2024. It's approximately 8:52. I'll turn it over to Chair Lake to vote on to start convening our work session.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mr. Coldiron. One of the things we'd like to ask your indulgence on, and we talked last week with the officers about this in planning. We knew we had some guests coming, and we'd like to take item 713, which is just a report item. We need you to accept the report at some point, but we'd like to move that to the first because we do have representatives from Arbiter Sports here, and we have since receiving information in late December confirming next steps that we were going to need to take. We've been working more intensely with them, but I don't want anybody here to think the relationship just started. For more than 20 years, we've worked with Arbiter Sports, particularly on the assigning end. We were one of the first states to, as a state, pay for all the assigners and their groups. And we did it because we could do it cheaper than the assigners could do it themselves. And that's a long time ago. And the guy right in front of me is the guy that's kind of been our lead point person forever. That's Park Evans. Most of you have seen him at the annual meeting. Karen Mowbridge, I'm probably gonna butcher that name, but is here, and she heads up their development side of things, and is the one that goes generally to the CEO of the company and asks for funding. I want to make sure something is abundantly clear. And I put this in the rationale for discussion, and I welcome you to look at it at your leisure. But we know this is a Herculean task we're taking on to try to make a substantive change that we did not have any option on because we felt like we did not want to change data systems mid 2024-25. We did not think that was our best path. We have been lucky to be in on the ground floor of a lot of projects related to technology in the last 5 to 10 years in particular. We were around for a project that didn't end up going, that the National Federation was talking about, and we were kind of privy to some inside information on a project that would have allowed our schools to have a central point of entering things. One of the frustrating things, if I were in a school right now, is that you still have several points of entry. You've got to know this site for this option and this site for this option, and we've always wanted a central site. So we know this is a really, really tough task, but we've been riding them pretty hard, quite frankly. And we know that the first priority is to make sure our school information is able to be entered. And so I've kind of stepped what happened since our last meeting. But I want to be sure you understand also that and I plan to say this anyway. We know that part of the challenge of this is we did it so damn well before. That's part of the challenge. We set a bar that's pretty high. And we could not have done that without our developer, Frank Rawherd, and the commitment he's made. We know that. We're responding to his desire to do other things. We will never be able to repay him and thank him enough. His passion, his commitment, his knowledge have been outstanding. But as we discussed in January, kind of knew that there might be a time, and we've kind of been looking at parachute plans for years. Exactly plan on happening when it did, but we think that we have found the only partner in the industry that could take on this task. And I say that because we know that there's a lot of people who have got a lot of time invested in this stuff other than Frank Rawherd. Rob has an abundant amount of time. Our entire staff spends a lot of time on their services to our schools. And we've got the right people in place. We think we've got the right company identified. But I wanted you to know the commitment of that company. He can tell us how many employees there are, but I doubt that there's a whole lot of companies that would want to subcontract with us that would send their CEO to a meeting to tell you how much they're committed. And Kyle is here. He's the CEO of Arbiter Sports, and like I said, it's hundreds of employees. I don't know how many total it is, but I'll just turn it over to them. Rob, would you like anything else before we get started, please?
No, I think I've touched base with several people. I know I talked to Matt at wrestling and a couple others, but skeptical at first, but after about 3 weeks ago, I got a demo. And the first thing I said after the demo of what they currently have is it didn't scare me away. I mean, I kind of like it. And so now we started last week. We have 2 meetings a week. It's Mondays and Thursdays. Everybody knows on staff that those are sacred times. But I think we're going across 5 time zones, 4 time zones. But yeah, it's a lot of time zones juggling. So we got to have it kind of early. But it's been exciting. We've got a gap review, a collaborative sheet we're doing right now. Karen's worked a lot on that. It's just, I told Clark, we had our first one last Monday. And I couldn't even sleep Monday night. It sounds kind of silly, but I was so excited because I wanted to get up and start working on it because it's fun. It's going to be a fun project. So just bear with us. There are a lot of wins right out of the bat, I think, and we'll talk about those as we go on. But I'll turn it over to you guys.
Well, thanks, Julian. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to allow us to come and be here. We have been, thank you for your kind words. We are very excited about this opportunity to work with Kentucky. The Arbiter's been in this space for a long time. Clark's dad actually founded the business back, 1984. So we've been doing this for about 40 years, been working every day to try to create solutions to help you guys at this level, all the way down to your assigners, your officials, your coaches, et cetera, kind of run the athletic ecosystem. So we're excited to kind of join you for this next journey. We've been working with Frank. I know that you have kind of set the bar with regard to what you've done in-house. I think Arbiter has resources though that can work alongside Frank, with you, Julian, and your team, and kind of create something that will really be kind of a cutting edge rather for this space. And so really excited to do that with you. Just wanted to demonstrate our commitment by traveling across the country here to see you. We've had a number of conversations recently and just want to continue the dialogue. So thank you for your time this morning. I am traveling with Clark Evans. You guys know Clark. He's our Vice President of Business Development. So has been with the business now for 35 years. I think, is that right? If it counts when you're 16, you can be in the office, et cetera. Karen does lead up our development team, but just want to make sure you guys have the resources here firsthand, and so we can kind of collaboratively work on putting a solution together that works.
Now, I'd just say the timing is good. We've been fans of the KHSAA technology solution. We had Frank out to our office several years ago, and there was an affinity. We had respect for what he's been doing here, and our goal at Arbiter has been remove data entry points for a long time. You can't really do that for school unless you're assisting the state association too, though, because we can try and connect them with all the other technology vendors serving districts and stuff. But the state is one of the primary areas that's still asking for data. And so when the opportunity came up for what if Arbiter were to grow what it's doing and really take over just about anything the state needed, it aligned with what we were doing closely. It is a Herculean task. It's going to take a lot of resources. We've gone through our CEO and now our board. We're going to need millions of dollars to get this right and have their full commitment. And so we know we don't come into a state and commit to these kinds of things, but there's on a long-term plan to make that successful. So we got all the support we need on our side to know we're all in on this and not just, let's take a look at what you might need, which is why we need multi-meeting per week with your staff understood and starting what's going to be a multi-year or decade, effort, but we're quite confident with the progress.
Our product dev team is so excited to be able to continue to push the updates we have in Arbiter to member schools. We have 2 dedicated teams to work with Frank and Rob specifically, and those are the ones that they meet with twice a week. So we've got a team that's been focused on member school solutions. Zane is our product manager there, and we could not be more excited to push, more updates and more solutions for member schools. I'm sure you've heard Zane's excitement on those calls. He's super passionate for anything and all things school related. And then we also have Chase, who's focused on our coaches solutions. Chase, we've been wanting to do this for so long, and Kyle has agreed to the commitment, and he knows my passion when I come into his office. Like, we've got to do this. We're going to do this. Step aside, Kyle, because we're going to do this. We're super excited. Yes, Karen, I agree. Let's do this. So we've got that commitment across the company, and the project is super excited to keep pushing for these things. Our team has a passion for building the solutions that your schools and the association need. So when we have full commitment from the board and from the child, this is where we live and where we flourish. So we're excited to be able to do it with KHSAA and the other schools. We're committed to it.
We're aware, and they have shared with us, there are a number of other states that are moving toward a central solution too. You know, it's interesting. Those of you that have been to the summer meeting know that there's a pocket of states that just don't want anything to do with this. They just turn their schools on their own. And then there's a pocket of states that kind of, well, if it works, it works. And then there's the third group, which we have been in, that made decisions years ago to get involved and try to be a central solution. And when you think about the daunting task of transferring that solution to a different platform, it's just a business step. But what it also does, and I did not prep him with this question, but I did ask him this question 2 weeks ago, so I want to hear his answer again. But one of the things that was pointed out last time about dealing with a company versus an individual that might be an advantage we never thought of is the constant addressing of technical debt. We always read about that. But I know that's a strategy you all have. Do you mind because everyone in here that has dealt with their own in-house stuff has dealt with the to-do list that they just never seem to get to because of the next fire that comes. And you all have an unusual way of attacking that.
So technical debt, if you're not familiar with that, it's just, even as you release software, it starts to age and become less relevant. So as you continue to innovate, you have this backlog of stuff that just needs to be updated, upgraded, recoded, et cetera. And so I think what we have tried to do is take a steady strain on that. And, you know, as we actually implement new, kind of new code, kind of replace, you know, do this in a thoughtful prioritization way. And so we don't have the team that's off kind of fixing tech debt and the team that's doing innovation. It's kind of one and the same. And so it just gives us the ability to not slow down innovation. We're rolling out software, new software every 2 weeks. And so we are in a constant state of innovation. I think one thing that sets us apart from what, you know, Kentucky tried to do previously is that we do have a large team of developers that are capable of doing this work. So it's just, you know, it's like we have a lot of friends, right? And so just that scale gives us the ability to kind of address this ongoing challenge you have for the tech debt standpoint. So, you know, we're excited to kind of bring that to bear here and be kind of a force multiplier for what, you know, Kentucky's trying to do. And so Karen, as she mentioned with Zane and Chase and what Karen does, are really on the front end of our development process. When we're out there, we're having conversations with our customers, with Kentucky and Kentucky's team, kind of figure out what you need, what are the requirements, et cetera. And then we distill those down into technical specifications that our developers then build. And so that gets kind of interwoven into the whole tech debt piece, because then we continue to roll things out and things continue to age. We have to stay ahead of it. But I think now the Arbiter, as Clark said, is at a place that we are of scale. We have 110 employees, 20 contractors, so we're 130 strong right now. You know, we have the ability to make the commitment to Kentucky and the other states that Julian was talking about. And we feel that we can, you know, with an investment of $10 million or thereabouts, we feel that we can really deliver for you. And that's why we're ready to make the commitment. That's why the timing is so good.
And it brings to mind one of the challenges that we talked about before, that when an individual state tries to do this, if 40 individual states or 50 individual states or 10 individual states are trying to do this, they can't do it they don't have the resources. And it requires just a continual, it's a degradation on other activities. The other thing I want to just to give some context to what Kyle was talking about regarding technical debt. I want you to think about 3 or 4 things that have been dropped in our lap for the last 3 or 4 years that nobody planned. You know, we had the legislature pass Senate Bill 128, which almost anybody can have a roster system, but nobody has a roster system where you can somehow get a second year in the same grade. It just doesn't work. You're supposed to be moving along. So we had to get, and Frank did an outstanding job of getting that in, working with Rob, working with Ted and our staff on what the legislature required and how to monitor it. But that was tough. And they keep So we have to do that. Now we've got this whole safety course monitoring. And you all know we kind of had a quiet rollout of that because we wanted to be sure it worked, where you can monitor all this stuff. And that was dropped on us. The safety course itself back in 2009, that's to be redone every 2 years, is not something that you can do with a standard system. So I just want you to know that's one of the advantages, right?
Yeah, and I think it's a good time to say that I'll look at all the ADs in the room because they all know that my position is going to remain the same. Like, I don't want you guys calling arbiter support. I mean, sometimes, yeah, but especially initially, I'm going to be the same person. Like, I'm going to be the one that you're going to call and we're going to work through this. Eventually, and I've talked to them as well, and their involvement maybe doesn't have to be that big, but the same way that we're doing these twice a meetings with Arbiter and KHSAA, I need to start doing same type of meetings with a handful of schools, whether it be Manual or Mercy or whomever, St. Henry or whomever. But I think the commitment has to be, I want you all to know that I'm still going to be the one that you're going to talk to.
And we have made
We'll get
that,
through this.
we've made that abundantly clear to them that they've got a resource that will be phenomenal, especially if it's who they've preliminarily identified. But that will primarily start out as Rob's resource. So that he can continue, because it is, and you saw this in the description, but we are really uniquely positioned. We happen to be close friends with most of the other state association people. Very few of their IT people have as direct a relationship with their ADs as ours have. And a lot of it is our system. So we're not having to go out and survey what do you need. We've kind of heard it already from the members, and that gives us a leg up. We look forward to one of the things that will be something that we will take great pride in years from now is being a blueprint for a national product. I mean, yes, there's an existing product, but we're gonna take that little bitty Chevy Volt and turn it into a Suburban if we can. And we're gonna keep adding stuff to it, and that will be something that the rest of the schools could be. I don't know if you all saw the news. I got a thing from the Drake Group, which is an advocacy group, but it's also a fact that there was a recent piece of federal legislation filed that would require the Title IX type of reports we're doing for our state in all states. And that's a different animal right there, because most of the other states, I can tell you, aren't prepared for it. And so if they have a plug and play solution, it's an alternative. So we just tried to, it's been nonstop since December, and it's going to be nonstop till something's rolled out. But I think we had commentary last time that I hope we keep in mind. And all of you that live here, maybe some of you aren't as obsessive about watching the morning local news, but those of you that are, have you seen a day go by that there wasn't a story about the changeover in the county clerk registration system? It will not be perfect on day one, what we roll out. It's just not going to be in a statewide rollout of technology, but we're trying to prioritize what absolutely positively has to work day one and what we can keep working. That's what Rob's doing.
And that's what we're working on now with the gap review. I mean, we went through and we're not going to have to turn everything on at once. Obviously, Title IX, that can wait till after the first year. What do we need to focus on? That's bylaw 25, coaching requirements and personnel roles, and they know that. So schedules, they got solid schedules. They're going to have a win, one place for schedule entry. So that's already going to be a win that we need to get out there in front of the schools. But there's quite a few little wins in there. We know what we don't have. We know what we got to close the gap on, but we also know what we have, right? Or what you guys have and what we can start out with. So
I think even the schools around this table would be surprised. And we've got an internal page that we created that Clark sent us some data on, that just all of our schools already have an existing public facing page. They don't even realize it. So Rob continually talks around the office about the wins. I think people don't realize that's there. The score reporting will still be there. You can still have your mandatory scores. It'll all be there. Now, we will second and apart from the school piece, and that's the last part or the later part of the rationale. We're looking at development opportunities, how we're going to do a scoreboard. Is it an aggregate here? Is it the use of another third-party company? Is it the continued use of our existing scoreboard through data connectivity? There's all kinds of options, but right now, the number one priority is what our schools see when they sit down or when they pick up their phone. So it's kind of want you to know what's going on.
Are we a pilot program, or are there other associations already on board? Are we kind of going to grow this thing as a group? And I guess that's what would be my only ask. Is this something you guys have already got, or are we getting ready? Is it a pilot program, which is awesome? But is it a program that you guys are gonna expand on, and then we can actually be your test baby, so to speak, and move forward as you all grow your company?
I guess I can take that one. Again, the timing is good because there's been several other states slowly pushing us this direction. The difference I would say is on those, there's no time frame for where their current system would not be available. And so it's been a slow movement of, well, what if we move this over this year? What if we move that over next year? Where here we get the sense that, you know, there is a definitive end date to the availability of the current platform. So that's, I would say for us, kind of fun, good. Now we'll go to the board and get real resources where we're speeding this up tremendously. And so in that regard, Kentucky will, I would say, kind of have the pole position on how this finally looks, because you're all, feels like all in at this point, and it's got to work pretty soon. And so, but it's a roadmap item for us that's been in place for some time, is now just putting on steroids. Great, now we've got someone who needs it badly. Let's push all in.
That's awesome. That's what I was asking, if it's something that you're all gonna use as kind of a program that you're gonna say.
But good for us, there are many other states that are interested, which just means we get to throw so many more resources at it that when it's done, we can.
I'd also add that the platform for member schools, as far as scheduling and functionality that Rob mentioned, there's, you know, potential wins that are already there. That's been in development, that's been in production for several years, and a lot of states have used that statewide and rolled that out as well. And their feedback has helped us improve that over and over and over. So that's where a lot of those wins that Rob's talking about came from. The continual involvement and every 2-week release of things that we identify as, you should build this mobile app for schools. We should now let you put scores in and make payments. And so we just keep building the last 12 years, specifically in scheduling.
One of the things that I see on this, and I think as board members, what I'd be asking is, you know, why is Arbiter so interested in doing this potentially with us, and why are we so interested in doing this with Arbiter? And I think Mr. Billings' question is a timely one. This is an area that they're trying to expand and to get into. And this is an area in which I think that, you know, our experience, our interaction across the country is we've set the bar in a lot of respects with what we provide to our schools at this point. So if you're Arbiter, isn't that a good place to start? You know, starting with a system that's providing some incredible services. You know, Frank and his system has been recognized as being on the cutting edge. And we want to do that. There is no intention, I don't think, when I hear people talking, when I've sat in these meetings, there's no intention of cutting these services. It's taking it to the next level. It's meeting that and taking it to the next level. And by us being at the forefront, like Mr. Billings indicated, we're going to be able to drive the ship. Clark used the pole position analogy, but I would say, they're going to be setting up the system around our successes and what our member schools are used to having. Is it going to look identical? No. But is it going to be providing those same and similar services and hopefully taking it to the next level? That's the point. That's why getting in on the front end is maybe even more important to Kentucky, because we will be integral in some of the decision making and the matrix decisions that are going to come back. And I think that's a neat place to be. But Frank set the standard pretty high and what he has created, along with Julian and Rob and the other staff members. And it's something that we've got to keep our eyes on. And I know the member schools want to make sure that there is no degradation out there.
And one thing that's kind of fun too, I think, is we always think in our system, it's varsity schedules. But guess what? Arbiter has every sport practically. So, and we can look at a couple of these. I think Julian wanted me to put a couple up, but I mean, individual sports are in there. I've been playing around with, these are the live pages. For instance, I've been messing around with Adair County because they're always first on the list. Yeah, it's not fancy. It's not, it's not necessarily super beautiful page, but every school has this now to where fans can get in and follow your schedules. You can schedule practice. I get that a lot. I think that was in Northern Kentucky about scheduling practices. Well, that's already there. So you've had all this type of stuff and you just didn't really realize it. And now, you can go in here and look at schedules. Like I've went into boys basketball on Adair County and actually entered rosters and so forth. but just as a play around, but this is already there. It's just, we just didn't know it was there. So I think it's a big win. You got middle, and guess what? You got to schedule even elementary and middle school officials. So they already have elementary and middle school schedules in there. So you can see maybe long-term going around to the circle where we have middle school in there. Now that's a big project, and it was actually one that I talked to Nate with. I was a little bit nervous about it last week about the way we do sports safety for the middle schools now, because they really don't have an accounts. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how are we going to get that in for day one? Well, they already got a solution for it. And their solution is it's a public sports safety course. They go in and take it, they get the certificate at the end, but guess what? They already have their Arbiter account. So when we add middle schools, they'll already have their accounts. And so that was kind of a big, and they kind of talked me off the cliff on that one, but that's an example of stuff that you've got. We just don't know that's there yet. So
The reason I asked that, and I'm saying this, and this was not prompted by Julian. I've had the luxury of being able to attend 5 or 6 summer conferences since 2019, and I have watched other associations talk to me being from Kentucky and being in a board situation and being in a president, chairman of the board type situation, and talk about how advanced Kentucky has been over the years. I don't think we as a group, and I didn't know as a group 7 years ago that we were as far along as we were as an association. So kudos to everyone in this room that works for the association, including Julian. And that's why I asked if we were a pilot program and if we were going to be out front and kind of going to be, you either lead the battle or you become one of those guys that get lost in the battle. And I kind of like that thought. And speaking to a relatively young group of board members, I think that's important. And we realize just how advanced this association has been under the leadership of the folks that are in this room. Pretty cool.
Young other than the center.
I want to
What
tell you
different
that
people?
something as a longtime athletic director, I've grown up with what we've had and I've felt really good about it. One of the things that a lot of you in this room run into is time management. How do we get stuff done? And the ease of being able to get the data reported and we can monitor that. I was very privileged to sit down with Rob during state wrestling and he showed me things on Arbiter. I already heard about Arbiter registration, but I didn't know we have the resources with Arbiter Live. You go in there and see scheduling, I could see it all in practices and rosters, and we weren't even aware that's there. I'm sold that this is gonna put it all in one spot and make it easier for us. Well, we're not spending time looking over here and there. It was awesome to see all this in one spot.
To follow up on Daryl's comment, but just to be sure, because there's a little bit of strategic thinking you got to do here too. I mean, we know that there's a state in New England that's already on the system, but they're probably not using near the extent that we're going to do. The one good thing about leading from the front is you maintain the hole is round. If you're 4th or 5th down the line, you're going to be trying to put your square peg in the round hole that's already developed. We are setting the hole. So we are going to be taken care of. And if our friends in a state in Section 2 that's fairly large that postpone their adoption, don't get what they want because they've done it for us. I'm sorry, Bob, you drug your feet. Sorry, because our job is not to look out for ourselves. Our job is to look out for our schools, and we will never knowingly make a decision here that disfavors our schools for an individual thing. So we know we caused this problem because we're so good, and it's a challenge. But I think everybody's ready for the challenge.
I have some
So-
questions just for clarity. What do you all see in the meetings that you've already had? As far as what is it that we already have and we're spoiled by? I admit that you don't want to touch. Like you're not going to take that challenge on. There's no, I mean, I'm just thinking in myself, there's no way that 100% of what we already have access to, that you already out like, yeah, we can do it all. There's got to be something that you're like, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do stats. We're not going to do the prime date report. We're not going to do the RPI. What does that list look like to you?
And on the one thing we've identified is, replicating the scoreboard. And that's where Julian was like, that's fine. Do we want to keep the scoreboard? Do we want to do something different? But that's something we raised our hand and said, by the time school starts, that's not something that's going to be in our wheelhouse. But the things like letting a school log in, do schedules, view all the information that's in there, coach management, additional staff permissions and reporting. That's right in our wheelhouse. So that's really the only thing we've raised our hand and said, this is something we should probably put to the side and let's focus on the rest of the stuff.
Rob, what else have you seen that's not going, you think, I don't know if this is gonna work?
Well, I was been thinking about it, that is bylaw 25 requirements, there are really not that many we track. So I think the user interface, which I guess we're having a UI person on our calls now to try to develop the user interface. It's being able to see it at a glance like you all see it now. And that's what I've stressed. The table where it's green, they love the colors, whatever type of format we can get them into, but for sure scores we can obviously do, schedules we can do, stats, RPI, no, right out the bat.
Like that reporting, that when you do your EAP, that's something new. Is there gonna be a box we can check?
That would be
That's
the,
all
yeah,
right in there?
yeah, because if you think about it, I mean, and that's what I've told them, as far as their bylaw 25, you got rules clinics, which they have, sports safety, which they can do. The AP training, that's new, we'd have to get that in there. CPR expiration right now is just a date you type in, so that's just a field, so that's pretty easy. I think it's trying to tie it into where it's in a display form where you can readily see the status of a coach at any time. And that's what we really got to work on. And they know that as well. That's got to be part of it.
Twice a week, right?
Right,
We're
right.
sitting down with my team going through page by page, conversation by conversation to say, okay, where is the gap? And let's put that on our roadmap and start finding timeframes to say, this is the order in which we'll do those so that we hit that school season.
And one thing we did last week, both Nate, I think Zane, Chase, and then Cindy is the UI. They all have access. They're super users in our system right now. So they're going through right now and figuring out how it works. And on our spreadsheet, I made some additional tabs of like, here's instructional videos, how you can find it to get them started. And then they're in there right now, just kind of working on Adair County, just kind of like I do. So if Adair County's listening, we'll straighten up any data mess, but.
Another question I have, is about, you currently said you have 110 employees and 20 contractors. Are those resources enough to do what you need to do for us? Or are you looking at hiring additional, you talk about $10 million also. So is that hiring more people to work on this?
We're hired this year specifically to tackle kind of the state tool piece. So yes, and then I think from a UI perspective, you talked about Cindy's, we're growing the size of our user interface team, et cetera. So bringing the resources to bear to make sure that we can deliver on that.
And just think, Frank and I were the UI, we were the development, we were the training. QA, which wasn't necessarily always the best. You guys always find errors and stuff. So that's still going to happen, but they have teams specifically in charge of that type of stuff. So UI is kind of one of those tacked on things. How's it going to look? How's people going to use it? That's kind of like you code, you get it working, then you shoot it out, and you don't necessarily have the UI tweak, but they've got someone sign.
The thing I would say is this is not an either or, it's both. We don't intend to abandon all the stuff that we have done historically to work on behalf of the assigners in the schools,
Oh, sure.
et cetera.
Yeah,
So
that's
this is going to be accretive.
Do you, so it sounds like by June, you're talking about the coaches piece, rosters, schedules.
Yeah, we've actually,
You feel like that would be in place for next school year,
yes.
those three things.
The rosters they already have. Now, it needs some tweaking, needs some fine tuning, but the rosters, like I showed in Adair County, the rosters are there. Is it exactly like we need it? Probably not, but the key to it is, I asked, and Matt, you can confirm this. When I was talking to you and Randy Borchers, I told Nate on the last call when we met, I said, what do you think Randy Borchers from Cooper High School said was his number one concern? And Nate said, typing everything in from scratch. And so obviously the big gap of it is getting all that data in there without having to enter. And that's a big.
And that's kind of what we talked about too. Is there going to be we all know how coaches and ADs love change and stuff like that. Is there going to be like a July 5th or 14th, 15th? That's gone and this starting anew. Is there going to be a slow rollout, or that would be my concern? Just turn it off one day and people freaking out.
That's between now and then.
Yeah,
It's
so-
the timeline, that's why they're meeting twice a week.
Yeah, so
I don't think you can pick a date right now. We have targeted in our meeting, the last time and in our other discussions, the dead period as the time that certain functions would go, would still be archived on ours, but the entry is on that, and that's got to be ready for this fall. There's some things that can't wait. Schedule entry might even have to go out early. And we talked about that. Right now, one of the things that Rob and Frank had the wisdom to do was not allow fall entry right now. Because we didn't want people doing double entry on stuff. So, you know, that's probably got to be first. But where we really like it, and we're a very unique staff. I think you need to know something that this board might not fully realize. We have 14 staff members, 5 of which have a previous full-time background in sports information. We are not skipping on a scoreboard, RPI, that kind of stuff. We're not doing that. That's just not the first priority. First, because there's companies that can do that. The beautiful thing that we realized a couple of years ago, kind of unbeknownst to everybody, is Arbiter had become the industry standard for their game API. So once the schools have the scores and schedules in, there's a number of companies that can repurpose that data. Well, we could keep doing it ourselves if we work out an arrangement. There's lots of options for that because we know that's what the general public will want is scoreboard and all that. But in reality, we need to get our school tools first, and that's why we've been working. From the first notice of this to right to today, is that's got to be our first priority, but it's not the only thing on the map. So I hope everybody realizes that there's some basic SI functions that we just got too many people been in that business around here. We're not going to let that back.
Right, we've got 21 points that we've defined as rollout points, and we'll be able to, and that's growing every week. So we'll have to eventually share this, of course, but it's looking at the March timeframe is when the rubber really's got to start hitting the road. And that's, statewide training and so forth like that. That's another thing, they have the resources they've already to do the training, straight statewide, of course, with me first, but then it don't have to fall entirely on me to train, they will have webinars and so forth like that. So that's another thing.
What other state, are you taking on any other new states other than us?
As far as that have interest in this,
In this,
as Julian kind of alluded to, Massachusetts is already, I would say, have it in their plans that they will not have their own system going forward, but we're slowly transitioning.
Do you foresee, have you had talks with anybody else? Do you feel like people are
just
going to
in
jump on the
Michigan
bandwagon?
Yesterday,
Michigan?
Yeah.
That's big.
most states knew that this was available was at a meeting in Salt Lake earlier this month that Butch and Julian both came out to, but we met with them separately there. And we announced that we were moving forward. We didn't name the states that were in on it, but we just said this is an Arbiter effort. There was a ton of interest in that. And for some, they're thinking 10 years down the line. They think their system will last another 10 years or longer. But very excited that Arbiter is working on this. And Tennessee is an example. Who does oversee middle schools and stuff. And of course, they went home with a lot of, we don't have to collect schedules anymore. We connect to the API going forward. But there's a number of things that just for us is ideal. Not trying to onboard 10 states at once. It's literally Kentucky this year with some others slowly following behind. That this is a huge part of what Arbiter looks like will be our future. And to us, it's great for schools. It's what they've been looking for, someone that has the state's buy-in. This is where we're doing it, but does a lot of other things that a state was not going to get into the day-to-day, just getting the game off. Do we have brass? Do we have the event workers? How do we pay them all afterwards? Now it's all in place.
In the 2 weeks since that conference, I can tell you there's been 4 or 5 that have contacted our office because when they heard we were doing it, it has piqued some interest.
That's what I was.
And that's probably good for us, but may raise that expectation bar just a little bit higher too.
Right.
That's the point I was getting at. I mean, a $10 million investment, the 3 little bits ROI, they're gonna do what they're gonna do. I feel, just sitting here hearing it, I can, your opportunity is the world, all 50 states. And I feel very confident that us being where we're at probably puts us as a major shareholder in not only your $10 million investment, your 135 employee investment, but it also includes the 284 member schools in this community, in this state that are going to be able to reap rewards, so to speak. So to me, I think it's it's not only a huge commitment from you all, but it's something that probably continues to keep Kentucky where we've been for quite some time, guys, under JT's leadership. Whether you all believe that or not, I mean, it's pretty special. So I think we need to pedal to the metal. What are you guys doing here? Y'all need to be working.
Go.
Last piece on this is for me, and I've said this before, so I'm just saying it in front of you guys or whatever. My concern is that this contract that we sign or have signed or will sign with you guys, it's a one long-term in that we consider who owns, whose property is this, that it says that we own it somehow. Also the looking out for, our job as a board is to look out for schools. So $10 million doesn't come out of nowhere. It gets passed on to somebody else. And so I want to make sure that the association, I know we paid Frank probably not enough over the years because he's such a good friend to the association. His heart was with Kentucky schools. And so I think he was doing things at bargain basement prices for us. So this is going to be a little bit of sticker shock, I think, possibly for us. And I don't want it to be too big a sticker shock. I also want to point out that, with the officials arbiter pay, we were all like, everybody was like, oh, you got to do arbiter pay. You got to, and it is fantastic. It's much like what the state has done for us. It's, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then it was all of a sudden, now some stuff is being passed on to the schools. Every time you check a box and pay an official, it's $1.25 per box you check. Every time you pay officials. And then this contract came out, oh, well, you can do a contract for so many years for this price. Well, those prices are going to go up. And that same thing is going to happen. I don't think anybody in this room can deny it, that same thing's going to happen with the school system. That there's going to be these bells and whistles that have been for free under our last 25 years with Frank. And as you can tell, I like Frank. And everybody does. But then all those things are going to come with a cost. So the schools need to be aware that there's going to be a price increase for these services that has been included in our school fee, or maybe the contract. I don't know, Julian, this is going to be you and Chad and Rob kind of thing. Can all that be included in our school fee somehow so that it doesn't feel like that's the way of the world today is everybody's you go out to eat and you want to use your credit card, you're paying an extra fee, or they can raise the prices. And we've seen that with GoFan. We've talked about, Zub and I know talked about endlessly about the GoFan prices. It's $1 more for that GoFan ticket, just included in the price. And it doesn't feel like they're paying an extra dollar. Sometimes it's how you package it. So those are things that I just want to put out to this group that I personally am concerned about. And I know that other board members may feel the same way.
The
That's okay.
alternative is this.
Yeah, let me.
Yeah. I think it's a great thing. I think it's going to be great. I'm really worried about the transition for schools, the cost for schools, and that we make sure that this contract that we sign is a good contract and beneficial to our schools. It doesn't feel like just another thing we have to pay for when we haven't had to pay for it. We're spoiled. It's the truth. I've talked about it in the past of I've been lucky enough to be at some schools that had turf fields. And when we first got turf fields, my coaches were like, this is amazing. We never have rainouts. We can play right after a thunderstorm, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, the turf, we're going to, something's going to happen to the turf. You're going to have to go play on grass. What? I have to go back and play on, well, what if it rains? Well, the grass isn't cut short enough, or it's too long, or the lines weren't painted. And, there's all of a sudden all these things that having to go back to grass, and I don't want to go back to grass. I'm spoiled. I want it. I want it all. And I want it for our school because I know how valuable the system we have is right now. And how much I get into it a minimum 5 times a day, minimum 5 times a day. Sometimes that's even on the weekends, kind of thing. So it's just, I'm passionate about this and I want it to go well, and I want it to be great. And I want it to be everything we need at a price we can afford.
We can't have Harvard education pay for an Alice Lloyd degree.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't know. They say-
I understand, but when you're used to a Harvard education and all of a sudden you get an Alice Lloyd degree.
I don't think we're going down Harvard education.
I'm just trying to make a point,
I
Daryl.
really believe it's gonna be on.
I know that the price is gonna go up. I stated that.
Let me,
I understand that.
let me try to answer Let me try, if you don't mind, to answer one of Angela's questions, because I can tell you the deal points we've been talking about. I don't mind saying them publicly. We know, the initial ask is within the current budget you have allotted, for the contractor. And we know we are paying for the coach maintenance at whatever that price is per coach, which I think the last I heard was $2. I'm throwing numbers out of here, but around $2. And a fixed number per school to maintain the basic page. And that's not going to be a passed on cost. Now, I know that I've watched a friend of mine just north of us who runs a rather very large association go through some trouble because they didn't anticipate what Angela was talking about. And they had some cost increases. So we're going to try to, we're not the easiest state to negotiate with because we don't back off really. And I know that even the original arbiter pay agreement, Clark can tell you, we were arguing over commas till the day we signed it. Because we were not gonna give on certain things. We think sometimes, this is the biggest challenge with this transition. I'm so grateful that you brought up a couple of those things, Angela, this past week, because I think it's important. The arbiter pay rollout of the change from per transaction to lump sum was about as poorly a communicated thing as we've been involved with. It was just by email, it was dry, some of the ADs had changed. They didn't sign it, all of a sudden they started getting big changes. Now, did they make it right? Yes. But what happened is, okay, you got to call back, you got to sign the agreement. Well, then we'll retro rebate all the old, it just wasn't rolled out well. That lesson stuck with everybody that works here because we heard that everywhere we went. So we know this rollout has to be managed better from a communication standpoint.
Right.
That's big. Secondly, we also know we're pushing for some things in this original contract. What we didn't say today, which is we've been how many years we've been talking about this? Fourth quarter this year, October, December, we want to be beta testing certain schools on an online exchange of transfer. We've got to get out of the paper business. But we got a lot of work to do between now and then. It's probably going to involve Chad. Because we got some, when you're dealing with height, weight, roster position, how many points somebody scored, you're not dealing with private data. People have already signed a permission slip, et cetera. You start filling out some of the things on the transfer form and using the internet to do it, you got privacy law problems, potentially. So we're going to have to address that. But that is something, that's an ask we expect. The best thing about it right now is automatically day one, complete seamless integration with those schools that use GoFan ticketing and the NFHS network. And we're already using Arbiter for assigning. An AD goes one place, makes a change, it permeates everybody, notices everybody, sends out notice. That is something we haven't had before. So we are trying our best to get this, we want to get this as seamless, and those are the kind of wins we definitely want to point out, that integration. But we're not going to we're wanting a long-term commitment, but we also want to make really clear what we made clear in our original agreement 20-some years ago, that the data belongs to us. And if the whole thing goes to heck, they got to be able to give us the data with proper notice. We can let the lawyers work out what the notice has to be, but at some point, if Arbiter just can't perform, they got to give us data so we can go somewhere else. And we know that. We know source code generally belongs to the company, but we should be able to get a copy of what we need. So those deal points are basic now, but they're great reminder that as we go forward, we got to keep that in mind. Rob, you had something else?
Yeah, and when it comes to money, that's between them. But I think you know my passion for it. And that is my passion is you guys are my customers. I always say it in front of you guys at the regional meetings. I tell every one of y'all that you're my customers. And I think my passion of trying to get it implemented along with their passion, I'm convinced we can do this.
And I will tell you that by the May meeting, the sports information subcommittee will have more answers for you where we're going some of the secondary issues. And by the May meeting, hopefully we'll have a lot more done on the school issues. Any other question?
I was just echoing what Angel said and what you said before I could say anything. It eased my mind a little bit because we've got the timing. I wrote timing on here because we need to start letting the schools know this is coming. We all know in this room it's coming. But I'm telling you, at the ground level where the ADs in here are at, they have no idea what's coming.
And we're targeting the
It's
AD conference
February,
week.
and we're in the middle of February, so the word has to start getting out.
Yeah, we're targeting the AD conference week because we don't want to put out something that changes.
And I don't, that's.
We don't wanna call
April.
you know.
The AD conference is in April.
Yep.
And that's really close to
Yep.
this transition and at when we take this back to our local groups, they are gonna ask about the financial piece as much as the active points.
Yep.
And, because a lot of us were here when we went from writing school checks to going to Arbor to pay, and I'll never go back. But there was a belief, or at least a perception, that they hooked us to it, and then after a couple of years, they bumped it up, the price up. So I hear what you're saying. I know it's coming. It is what it is. It's happening. The other thing, and this is my little tidbit that I threw out because I've been doing it a long time, and I love Rob, and Rob knows I can reach out to him, but man, at least initially, Arbiter, which is in South Dakota, I believe, or Utah, has got to have somebody, because I've tried to call Arbiter. And guess what? You have to wait till Pacific time to get somebody on the phone, but they have to have somebody that's available on Eastern Standard Time for ADs in this state to pick the phone up and call them. At least on the front end of it.
And we have had that discussion when the team was here, because you had made that point. And we've also got, here's the other piece that we know, we want to be sure is clear. The officials support with 500,000 officials is outsourced. The school support is not. The school support is Arbiter people. And that's an important distinction. I get why they can't, with 100 people, support 500,000 officials. We couldn't either. We couldn't support 4,000. It was their challenge, so I went to Arbiter. But now separate that's the support is different. And that's going to be a continual reminder until we talk about meetings.
Yeah, and if any companies that we back and that back us, that Julian and I both can either one get on the phone immediately. And whether ticketing partner, whether it's the NFHS network, we have those contacts in place. It's when we go off to another tangent in different groups where we don't have any pull, but we can get things done. I mean, I'm sure we'll bug Clark to death and I'm bugging Nate to death, but
No more than normal. I hate to think how many texts we've gotten from our staff over the year.
I think
And
it was,
Frank.
I think it was important that, Arbiter is here today and they can hear, from you guys, some of these sensitive issues. They need to understand the importance it is, the accessibility, the cost. They need to hear it so that when we're in that negotiation process, they understand where we're coming from. This isn't just coming out of the ethernet. This is something that we have to deal with. And I hope that for our board members, especially our board members that are in the system constantly and on a daily basis, as many as 5 times, as Angela said, some days on the weekends, reach out to Rob on things that are important, things that you think that need to be stressed and highlighted. I know that you guys are in talk with, regularly with Rob on those things, but we need to hear from you. And I'm sure that you'll be a part as we're rolling this thing out to make sure that you guys are in the loop and a part of this, because this is we've said it, it's a Herculean effort and it's something that we cannot fail.
Well, the last thing that I'll say, I've already made this suggestion to Kyle. I think I made it to Karen and Clark and Nate when they were here. On behalf of our ADs, I think they need to rename the product. It's called Arbiter 360, and I told them it should be Arbiter 365 because that's kind of what our ADs end up working most of the time. It's unfortunate that while a transition was inevitable, it's just no matter at some point we're going to have this year. I want to say, make sure you all know, we have nothing but positive to say about Frank. Frank Ryherd has been a friend of the association, a friend to us as individuals, and certainly a supporter of the KHSAA, and his father before him, and he was in the trophy business. As a matter of fact, his father is the one that called and arranged the meeting with Frank Jr. and Lewis and I to start the school. So they've got a passion for it. We as a group collectively hope he remains involved. I hope personally, I would say that I'd have everybody to talk to him and tell him. I'd love to have him keep doing the scoreboard because it's got his name on it. It's the Ryherd KHSAA scoreboard. I'd love to do it. But that's a decision he needs to make. And I think that he's made a difference in the lives of our ADs and our schools. And we don't ever want to forget that just because we've transitioned at a point in time. So, thank you.
Even though that we're based in Utah, my family is from Kentucky, so I've got a little bit more passion for this state than other states. It's been several Christmases and summers here.
We found out she's got a Kentucky
Cats or
Georgia
cards?
connection.
Yeah.
She kind of thinks like us and talks like us.
cats or cards though. Which one?
I'm not saying.
All right. Oh, man. That's safe, that's safe.
Well, there was only one good answer.
Now that
Didn't have a
Nick
board
was
member that felt differently. but she's not
Everybody
here
from
now.
Louisville, close
Now,
your ears.
we got one that still represents the red. He's down there. He'll keep representing.
I do
We're
as well.
noting that we
Sorry.
employ Frank at Auditor too, and would love to have his influence on the
More than
next
happy to.
iteration of what's
He's
used.
certainly been through a lot in 20 years, 25 years.
Has information you only get through. 20
He's
years of
forgotten more than a
service.
lot of us will know.
I really think that, Frank's legacy of 25+ years and the work that he's put into it, it's not going anywhere. It's not gone. That's the point here, is that we're taking that legacy and we're transitioning it over into this system. His legacy is gonna live on in our world, no doubt.
Anything else, Mr. Goldstein? We knew that item would take a little while, and that's why we invited them and asked them. to come, and thank you all for.
Thank you for having us.
Okay.
Look forward to working with you on this. Nice to meet everyone.
Nice to meet you.
Mike Walker.
For the record, we will just ask for an acceptance of that report when we get to it, because we're still a little premature on contract. You already ready for break? Yeah. Biology break.
Biology break. All right, let's take 10 minutes. 10-minute quick break, real quick, and then we'll come back 10 o'clock.
I guess we'll have some of the report. Anybody else has had some of the report yet? I'm kind of-
I had you back. If I help you. I don't want to stir.
Give that answer the piece on it.
Until Mr. Catherine returns, we are still recording. Don't get Jason is very confident about something. February 3rd.
But that was literally not a good one.
February 3rd. Good news is, Rob, stay standing. Thank y'all for allowing us to amend the agenda. They're headed to Columbus to meet with the Ohio Association. So, we're, they were trying to tie things together a little bit. So, the next item on the agenda would be normally your item 4, the legal session. And then Chad, you want to remind them the requirements, they gotta make the motion, et cetera.
Yeah, I just need a motion to enter, executive session for the purposes of discussing, pending or proposed litigation. Excuse me.
Need a motion first,
So
Joe,
moved.
second. Greg, all in favor? All opposed? Closed session.
The operations reports are next, and 5.1.1 is a legislative report. You've got a document that contains all the cases basically all the cases related to education. And it's labeled the action track report that comes from Top Shelf. It is a bunch of pages. There's a lot of bills related to education, but that's just more for your information. Couple that we highlighted that we're working through, and we did show as of 2 days ago all the bills that are related to athletics in that list, and there's not, it's really kind of minor this year. I can tell you that Mr. Collins and I have both spent quite a bit of time in the Capitol in the fall, and as well as leading into a couple of weeks ago, I was beckoned over there for a couple of meetings that Top Shelf has been doing. They're doing a really good job of keeping us informed. You need to keep an eye on Senate Bill 210. We talked at length over the past couple of years about the participation of non-enrolled students in athletics. And as you know, on behalf of our superintendents, on behalf of this board, we have been very public about the fact that we don't think it's proper for those students that are not enrolled in our schools to be able to play sports. And you know, it always comes up around the homeschool initiative, et cetera. We've shared your concerns about that. There is a bill over there now that was introduced that has not yet moved. We're in the 2 or 3 week, what we call I don't want to call it danger in terms of health and safety, but it's the danger zone because things start happening really fast. So they are monitoring everything for us. Senate Bill 210 is a different take on it. And it comes from a lot of the discussions we've had. If you've looked at it, it is a bill that would allow participation in all extracurriculars by students who are partially enrolled. And we've stressed what you all had talked about, which can we get a connection to the school? Some of the superintendents in the room talked about, can they at least have to go to class for an hour? Can they take state testing? Can they do different things? And so we've monitored closely what's going on. There's discussion about the keys requirements and opening up keys money for certain non-enrolled students. And we've worried about that just from a standpoint that if that happens, what's next? Not the keys, because that's not us. But what is the next thing that non-enrolled students? We believe that the definition of interscholastic athletics is athletics played between schools, and that you should be tied to the school. This is the first time that we've seen something introduced that would let a student who's not necessarily full-time represent a school in extracurriculars. So it kind of falls right in with what had been talked about as a possibility to at least get them connected. If you get them connected partially, then there's partial seat money moving. There's lots of reasons why that some prior objections by some of our school administrators may not be as vociferous now. If they're able to find account for those kids, to get some money for those kids, et cetera. We don't know. We know it's numbered, sequentially. It obviously was not an early legislative priority. When you look at bills that are introduced with a very low number, that came into the session as a priority. But Senator West is primary author. He's chair of the Senate Education Committee as well as chairman of Administrative Regulations. So he gets our attention when he comes out behind an issue. But we've talked to him about the connection aspect, and we don't know if this is going to go anywhere, but it's worth monitoring. The other thing that has come up recently, and it's only tangentially connected to us, the Senate Bill 4, which is Senator Higdon's bill, and obviously that number tells you it was a legislative priority, would cap end of year piling on of sick leave time. So sometimes districts have done that with coaches. Sometimes they've done it with retiring administrators. We are in KTRS. So basically it appears as though what it does is at the end of June, it caps your accumulation other than the basics you earn years after. So you couldn't roll personal days you didn't use into that sick leave money. You could, and some boards have done that. It's been a little bit of a golden parachute for people. So we just thought that would be something to put on there. It's not on our monitor list. It's not on our problem list, but we will continue to keep you up to date with all of those things. Thus far, we have not had anything come as a surprise. The AED legislation has not moved at this point that Representative Palumbo and Senator Moser had talked about, or Representative Moser. And I know that I think you'll see it tacked on later on. There's going to be additional reporting requirements to the Department of Education. So let's untangle this mess related to AEDs. There was some discussion because of the budget surplus of setting some money aside to help schools buy AEDs. But nobody could really come up with how many AEDs did the schools really need. And if it's for athletics, how many teams do you have? It might be different if I'm at Dave Zuberer's school and how many programs they offer versus I'm at Bardstown High School and they may not have the same number of programs. Are my numbers the same? Nobody could come up with a quantifiable number. So we believe what may move is a bill that requires more reporting so that can be determined. So that the next time a budget allocation or that foundation block grant that they created last year. Next time that comes up, they might actually know. KMA behind the scenes is working to expand that medical trust fund to not only help reimburse for AEDs, but help reimburse for the wet bulb globes that are now the requirement for monitoring the heat. And maybe it's partial. We've had some strategic talk with them. There doesn't seem to be a lot of favor with just the legislature blanket paying for stuff. But maybe they could reimburse partial to where Rowan County has some skin in the game by their paying, but they're getting a big discount because they're getting this rebate, and maybe they'll maintain it better. Maybe they'll use it better. It's been really quiet, but the entire team, all 4 people that work with us at Top Shelf are keeping us informed every time something moves. So we don't have a lot. This is just a report.
Will there be another time today when we talk about that? Because I think,
No, it's not on the agenda.
but do you think, will there become an opportunity similar to AEDs in the past where this association or maybe the KMA have an opportunity for all the schools? Because
Purchase.
yeah,
We're
they're playing next
Trying to
week.
finalize that by March 1st.
Yeah.
We're working on an agreement with the company.
I could be wrong. I think 95% of the schools right now do not have that piece of equipment.
Yeah. We have, just anecdotally from talking to the medical committee, it seems like the urban areas are slower to get caught up. Some of the, especially in Western Kentucky and Northeastern Kentucky, they've already got them, but it's because their team doctor pushed them to get it or something like that. But you're right, and we're trying to get that contract by the first of March. And hopefully we'll have something good to tell you at that time.
And Commissioner, did you, I might have no doubt, and I apologize if I did, but that's been one of the initiatives that potential fund that's gonna be.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about, where they're gonna try to expand that trust fund, but they don't even, it's tough, because this was one year they could have put a bunch of money into it.
Yeah.
Because of the surplus. Next year, they might be able to put a bunch of money into it because gambling is receiving a whole lot more money than they originally thought. So there may be some pot there, but we've got to try to figure out, as Mr. Zuber said, if we can find a good jumping off point for discount, or at least setting a standard for exactly what equipment, because I'm telling you, the price range is from about $110 to about $600. And it's a wide range. And so we think we've got pretty good work with NATA on getting something put out there. 5.12 is just the regulations. We've got no information new from January on our existing regulation. We know we're starting it. We've got the timing of the process. Coincidentally or not, we're trying to start the timing of the regulatory process following the adjournment of the legislature. So we can make sure we know what they have done that might need to be impacted. But we do want to mention that the State Board of Education heard, as is required by regulation, the report on Title IX deficiencies that our audit team put out. And if you look at that report, there's a particular school that they have targeted for wanting to know why in the world we're not being more aggressive with their deficiencies. So I can tell you, I talked to Mr. Bilberry and the audit team member. They've been following up. I think the AD that produced the report is now the principal. He may be just a little overwhelmed, but they're trying to get that done. And Darren, I don't know if you've had any further success yet, but I know that Gary was focused on that.
He did give me a call back, maybe while I was at the restaurant, so
Okay.
I didn't get a chance to call this.
Well, I would ask you, as we talk to that, if you would talk to Mr. Thompson and make sure he's aware of what's going on, he may be able to help us too. Okay, nothing else, that's just a report.
Move that forward. Non-championship reports for staff.
None of these are, I don't think, our staff, tell me if any of your this is about meeting attendance, something you ask us to do. We've been all over the place since January at different meetings. And the only thing I will mention is the Federation has put out an RFP for the summer meeting in 2028. And the city of Louisville is one of their targeted markets. They're going to try to see if the people in Louisville can respond to the RFP about having the meeting there. We're not asked to push it or not push it. If they ever set it for here, the staff would have to be involved in helping with hospitality and hosting. But right now, they are one of the cities being considered for 2028. There's 4 that are being considered. It's a Midwest cycle. 514 is the sports and sport activities report. Anything staff wants to add regarding their reports? I mean, the only thing I'll mention, Joe, do you have anything about wrestling? Tradition.
No, I mean, I thought overall it went very well outside of falling behind schedule and so we'll look at that for the future, but feedback was positive for the most part, and there's happy feedback for the most part.
Yeah, it's a different facility. It's certainly larger. And nobody seems to mind the non-modernness or modernness of different things. They just wanted a bigger place. And so it worked very well. I will tell you that in the original budget bill, there is some improvements proposed out there. First and foremost, there was some discussion. Let's say that it was on their plan. I haven't seen if it's in the budget report. There was proposals about making a permanent concrete floor there, that they could then add dirt onto it when they had a rodeo or something, and not all the time be dirt. We don't know where that stands, but we know that was in some of their original requests. Second one is about the swimming first round. I just wanted to make sure the board understands that we brought to you a concept a year and a half ago, that we thought would help with our capacity issue, and the data showed that last weekend it did. We had the state fairly evenly divided among both participants and people buying admission, and there was not a chance for mom and dad not to get in to see their kid. We'll know more this weekend if it worked at the state level by cutting it down, but Ms. Ball has those two right in a row, and is anxiously awaiting the arrival of a new staff member to approve that. But having the new indoor track meet and the swimming split into 2 weekends is a large load. So, anything you need to add? I would like to spend just a second on an issue around basketball that really hasn't been a problem in the other sports. I don't know if people pay more attention in the other sports when changes are made, but we've had a lot of questions, not negativity, just questions about the seating requirement that the board changed in 2021. 2020-21. And I realize that's half the people in this room weren't on the board yet. But there was discussion about what to do in a seated district where you couldn't break the tie. And frankly, the association and its staff were often placed in a position of trying to referee these arguments. What did it really mean? And quite honestly, most of the people at the meetings arguing about those seating plans weren't there when they were passed either, because seating in basketball has been done a lot differently. It's been done different ways in a lot of places over the years. The board's action was to approve a recommendation that once you went through all your on-court, field, pitch, I think I included all three of those, tiebreakers, if nothing broke it, then you just looked at the RPI the day after the seating deadline, and that broke it. The whole purpose was to encourage people to spend some time looking at your tiebreaker and make sure you never got to the RPI. Come up with something. Inevitably, Joe has a district in his region. They're going to argue every year about seating because they just can't seem to agree on what it says. And what I had planned to do in implementing all of this was that we would tell everybody, we're resetting all the plans. Y'all, between now and the start of next season, need to meet, report the plans, get them in, and make sure they're detailed. And your plan can include, it doesn't make, the board concurred in 21, it doesn't make sense for you to say you're going to seed based on what you do on the court and then break a tie with a coin flip. That's not on the court. So we said, it's going to go to that comparative, how you play. Y'all approved it. We've got a bunch of people that, I don't know, didn't read the memo, didn't get the memo. They've missed it when it's been talked about at regional meetings, missed it when we talked about clinics. And turnover, that's the big thing. That's what we've seen. Damon and I were talking last week about a situation that when you look at 3 districts down there, about half of them are new since 21. They really don't remember. And, you know, the coaches go back and say, well, back in 09, it was da-da-da. I just think it's time for a reset. If the schools reaffirm what they want, that's fine. But I think we do not need this staff involved in refereeing those disputes. The district seating should be a local decision, period. But we have to have a parachute. So that's what that report's about. We are not making anybody redo their draws if they did it wrong. But we're reminding them that they probably did it wrong.
And all wait for this time, it's right now.
Well, and the interesting thing about, in one of Joe's districts, we had a situation where the tournament manager reported the seating plan on January 17th of 23. Nobody said a word till February of 24. Published, it's out there. They're even arguing, one of the schools said, well, nobody signed it. Well, I don't know how you have people sign a form that one school sends in. We've even talked about, did we just go back to a paper form, and then they stopped that. But no, we're not going back to paper form. So we're just trying to get us out of the middle of it. And therefore you out of the middle of it. So does anybody have a real problem if we just tell them about, let's start over? Because ironically, basketball is the one sport, we didn't get a first inquiry in volleyball, soccer this fall. But volleyball is the one, or basketball is the one sport, if you look at when the tiebreak or when the seating plans were submitted, a ton of them were before 21. They've been there a lot. Now you can look down and see the ones that have done it recently. They've incorporated the RPI tiebreaker. They get it, but some of these legacy ones, they just haven't touched it. We just think we need to be out of the middle. I need to get staff out of the middle. So
Saying that they could go back to a field bottle, a line draw, a home plate, allowing it all.
no, just
No.
it's still got to be decided on the court. That's what they couldn't put as the second, third tiebreaker. Go ahead and think about it. Let me tell you, I'd say this with a basketball coach I have the most respect for sitting diagonal from me. You get a bunch of coaches in the room, they'll figure out a tiebreaker. You tell them to go 3 or 4 deep. You can't let them have the cop out of, okay, we'll just put it in the building. That's the thing. Spend some time on it. You got all kinds of time, but then report what you come up with. Right now, the problem is when they bring it up, they know the existing results. So they know that back in January, the wrong team won a game. And that team's going to try to say, well, here's what it means, because it's going to help them. The other team's going to say, that's not really what it meant, because we don't want to play this other one. When they know the results, they can't be objective. This summer, this fall, they could be plenty of spring, they could be plenty of objective. Y'all get together and just do it. We don't want to be in that business. Do you all? Y'all disagree? I mean, it's no fun. So that's what that report's about. Way too much time on a report, but I knew that a couple of you had talked to me about that, and I know that like I said, we're not going to tell everybody to just sit there and not do anything. Go ahead. So.
Oh, I was just gonna, I think if you're done with basketball.
Yeah.
I did put a report on spring esports enrollment, and it did actually, the final numbers is actually about 100 more. So we're over 1,800 students across 124 schools now.
Oh,
And being free helps, helps obviously. And spring's typically the higher season, but we did add 2 new titles. One of them's competitive paintball, it's 4 versus 4, and then a 1 versus 1 basketball game, NBA 2K24. So it's gonna be a busy esports season. They kick off play today. So this is started regular seasons today.
Joe has a report about tennis, but there's an agenda item later where we're going to ask you to let us approve the final sites. We have 2 sites that we hold individual singles and doubles at, and we're still trying to finalize availability and contracts on them and then get that announced. But right now it's not. We're just going to ask you to let us finish that. And then of course the team tennis format he's replicating from the one time we did it before. So I think we'll be in good shape on the team tennis. And then baseball, anything special, but remember that we pushed the baseball season back a week, which really helps our conflict in the event that a local university happens to get in the NCAA tournament. To make the super regional, we do have a facility that's potentially available if they should all of a sudden get real hot when they have a facility for our first round. Just a report on the 15th region competition rules. They are ready to do their districts with a constellation bracket and their super regional format, and we'll see how it goes. Connor, I know you've had to do some work on the scoreboard. You think we're ready to go?
Yeah, definitely. It's essentially just going to be a play-in game into the region tournament.
Good. That's kind of what we thought that you had the solution. So there was a little bit of consternation about how we were going to do that, and I think it's ready to go. So that's good to know. So the 15th region report will be there. You've got the standard transfer and eligibility report, and then in the regular meeting, we'll ask if you would approve all these operation reports. That will be a motion we'll highlight for there. Officials division, Mr. Cope and Mr. Bottoms.
with regard to the report and everything, it looks like basketball numbers officials, we were actually up a little this year. Again, just a number of new officials, about 240 on that baseball. But again, it seemed to be like they only start now, January, February, when they license, so we hope that balances out. We did have 38 junior officials in basketball. We've got 11 in baseball and 8 in softball. So I think basketball and wrestling, we had 38 junior officials in both of those programs. So they really, we're taking off on that as well. So I don't know if you have anything else to add as far as the licensing part of that.
The only thing, if you are a numbers person, like several of us, and you want to dissect them, don't put too much stock in new versus re-registered. Because when we opened up the registration this year, if the officials had a different email address now than they had last year, they ended up registering as a new official. So the numbers will be better next year because we can identify the duplicates, but for this first year, don't be too scared off by that. You also had disqualifications between the two of you. I know Scott really enjoys that other duty as assigned that he deals with every morning. Scott, anything for the board?
I just noticed this morning, for whatever reason, it jumped off the page, the number of coaches that are injected in basketball that would be concerning to me versus football and other sports. You probably know that, I do, but so that was a number that kind of surprised me.
Also up a little bit, and
More than soccer.
Coaches, yes.
yeah, coaches,
Yeah.
coaches it is. Go ahead and say, it. We got more teams and 2 genders. Go ahead. The defenders of the coaches. But no, it is, I don't know. We haven't dove in, which we can later, to what the common thread is. Does seem to be language by the coaches. Fairly common thread, and that's the common thread on the soccer players. It was, Chad told you that last fall. The language, they're taking it serious. They're trying to.
I think it's important to share with the board too, though we do have schools where we have incident reports that our schools are being proactive in dealing with incidents that are outside of the official jurisdiction.
Scott did have one question that came up, if a JV player in basketball gets ejected, is the school notified and and they have to be able to request to get back? So like we do varsity.
Oh, yeah, so if it's freshman JV, they all receive a copy of the disqualification report. And are told that they have to sit out the next 2 games. That process.
If some schools say it's happened, they haven't gotten those and they were concerned. That's why I brought it up. I don't,
Disqualification report,
yes.
If you wouldn't mind offline, let him know that school, because those have to be manually done.
Yeah.
So
They
it's,
and you still have to go in on KHSAA and ask for, don't have to do that. It's on varsity.
there is no, you're not even on varsity. There's no connection. We started that in the fall. There's no connection between the report and the school going back. Our job is to make them know that you have to sit them out this month. And it's their job to execute. Yeah. But if we've got a school that didn't get that first notice, make sure we know if we can follow up. Because we have found a number of cases where the contact at the school may not be accurate in our records. We have an AD that served about 6 months before he might change the name. So that's a little problematic.
It's also possible that the official didn't put the report.
Exactly, exactly. And you all dealt with that once already too. The other thing is more for information. That's why it's a report, but, the administrative fee, the way registration has worked for close to 20 years, we've had an administrative fee and then, per sport fee. And we do the administrative because that covers the NFOA cost. It covers, abundance of things, insurance that included in there, et cetera. And then we add on, per sport, because whether we're doing electronic rule books or paper rule books, we're now in electronic, it costs us the same. And it costs the official the same. That license code that sends the officials, so it's not like we get a break by just doing electronic books. At one point, fee was $45. It's been lowered over the course of 2 different reductions to 35, I believe, isn't it? Is it 40? Oh, because it was 50 and it's been lowered twice, so it's now down to 40. So we basically tried to knock $10 off the admin fee, and we did that for a reason. When the clerk's offices and the state division that does the background checks quit doing some of that stuff during COVID. We started kind of lowering the fee to officials because we know they've now got to submit a background check if they've never had one. One person at this table, in the young people part of the table, knows how much fun it is to go through all those reports. We now are going to be able, through our partners at Arbiter, we're going to be able to use the background check, get a background check for those people that have never had one. And we can flag them and they'll submit that all through Arbiter. We won't touch it. It's going to cost them around $30. But that's why 4 years ago, we started knocking off $10 a year. So we've reduced it. Well, now I'm suggesting that we leave it low again next year because they're going to have a cost of a background check if they're new to the game. They've been in the last, 5-6 years. So just wanted that out there. But Arbiter will physically go and do it. Unfortunately, if you know anybody that's in the judiciary, they'll tell you that our Kentucky's system of tracking crimes, et cetera, is not accessible to other computer networks. So you can't really use electronic background checks. It's strictly a manual process. Slows down teachers. I know a lot of teachers go to the UPS store and get their background check, et cetera. So we just wanted you to know that we've discounted already 40. We're recommending we stay again lower next year so that we will have discounted enough for people to do a background check one time. Thankfully, the regulation has been amended just like the teachers. It's really just one background check during your career. And then any other time that somebody has reason to believe there's something that's occurred, we can request it. So we got to get back in that mode. And so that'll be necessary going forward. The next item is one for the board. 5.3.1 gets into finance and business things. It's a reminder that you need to elect at this meeting in your regular session. So we'll move this item forward, but you'll need to elect a president-elect. We do this in February so that at the point in time we're ready in March to start talking about the summer meeting and plans, et cetera, that person is known. So not necessarily do it now, but be aware that the qualifications are there. You've got to be in your second year or second term. And we've got underlined who should be eligible. So we've had such turnover in the board that most of, a whole lot of people are eligible. And I may have missed one underlining, but I think we've got it right as far as the people that are eligible. And hopefully you all have had that discussion among yourselves, or we'll have it at lunch and have a good, smooth election. The next item is 5.3.2. This is required by state reg. It's not because I want it on the agenda, it's because it's required. Annually, the general counsel will facilitate the required evaluation. Right now, I'm under contract through the 26-27 school year by virtue of your action last spring, but it does require an annual evaluation. And Chad, if you want to give me any details about that.
Sure. So the plan is, and I've talked to our executive committee in regards to the board about the steps going forward. We will continue to utilize the evaluation tool that really originated with Boyd Randolph when he was working with us as a board member, and is similar to some of the superintendent's tools that they use for evaluations. But what this allows us to do is to compare apples to apples rather than having a trend of different things every year. We can kind of see some trends and positive and opportunities as well. And so we'll continue to utilize that. I will send out a link at the appropriate time for you guys, and we'll give you enough time to complete that. And then once the window for that evaluation piece closes, I will get with the executive committee again and make sure to convey the results of that in a couple different formats so that they can use that and use that to talk with you guys to approve. And then there's also a piece that that executive committee will have to do where they'll sit down with Commissioner Tackett, discuss the results of that evaluation, and kind of chart a path, for the next year in terms of anything that they might want to do. Any thoughts or any questions that you guys might have on that? Feel free to reach out to me on that anytime.
Thank you all. 5.33, Mr. Cope, you want to give us a little bit of a summary of the TPG report?
Yeah, I think Ms. Hacker shared, which was here at the last meeting, that they had reached their goal. They're now at 113% of the goal. And over the course since we started our partnership with TPG, they've increased our corporate sales by almost 70%. So a reflection of her excitement, enthusiasm. They're not stopping, continuing to sell what they have left for the spring sport.
Questions? That's always good news. You have in there the standard balance sheet. Ms. Howard has the standard balance sheet, check report, and income statement report for this year. This is a time of year when one of the things that happened before, if you remember, we would have been selling tickets to the basketball tournament for October, November, December, and we would already have some of that in the bank, and numbers might look even a little higher than they are now. All of that money is custodied at Rupp until the event's held, because we have to let them keep it in case there's, heaven forbid, a cancellation like we never foresaw coming in 2020. They would have to be able to have the money to refund it. So, so we feel like the numbers where they stand now are very solid, and we've had good events. We know we're having 2 events the next couple of weeks with our swimming and our indoor track that are not going to be revenue generators, and that's okay, because the others around it are. The cost of, I do want to say, because we were very candid with you in January about the cost of the indoor track, they have been over backwards to try and make accommodations, identify staffing areas that we can cover, they don't have to cover, which makes our cost better. They're really trying to make a go of this. And so we'll know more after our first indoor meet about what that looks like for the future. But I gotta give the Norton people credit. They have, Marcus and the staff there, Marcus and Danielle, have just really said, what do we gotta do to make this work? And that's not, and really it just took us reaching out. And they were very receptive to trying to work on behalf of our students. So, so that will be a part of the report if you approve it. Part of this also is authorization from for you, because of the amount of money involved, and we won't be back together until May. The agenda item, finally back to some of the pre-COVID stuff. We need you all, by approving this report, to authorize us to issue the team reimbursements for the fall sports. That being the football teams that came, the field hockey teams that participated, the soccer teams, the volleyball teams, the team sports. We want you to go ahead and authorize that, and then we'll get that calculated in the process and share the information with you in May. It's a decent outlay, but and really it's just the timing of this meeting. We need to go ahead and get it done, because we won't meet again. Well, I know I got a couple of superintendents in here for schools that played football that probably like to have that. So I hope you'll approve that report. 536 is a unique item, and I know that Wells and Ms. Parker are here, but I just want to let you know about the process of something, because we're not going to decide it today. It's not an issue for the board to decide, but we have received a collaborative request from the Scott County Schools and the Harlan County Schools to examine a historical event that occurred. Years ago, there was a decision made by the superintendent of schools in Harlan County to forfeit all the wins that his coach had gotten that year because of the use of an ineligible player in 2 games. And that was a decision that has been brought to us before, but without the clarity that we have now. The 2 superintendents have really done a great job of trying to really dig into the details. Today, as a matter of fact, for the last 30 years, if that occurred, the sanction would be just the games the ineligible kid played, not everything he did all year. So I'm going to, under the constitutional authority, I'm going to act on their response, but you all become the appeal board if somebody doesn't like it. Nobody knew at the time those games were stripped that the coach would become our winningest coach ever. And it become an issue. So you didn't know. Nobody could foretell that. But we're going to respond to it. We're going to act on it sometime in the next couple of weeks. The boards had the matter before, and the staffs had the matter before, not with the clarity with these 2 schools. I mean, they got documentation. Ironic thing about it is, and I'll say this from the documentation that came from the Harlan County schools, one of the people involved in that team, actually may have been on that team, is currently on their board of education. So it's not like we're guessing at facts. He was there. And that's been a big help to try to get to the fact. And so we'll issue an answer on that. You all become the appeal board if somebody's disenchanted. But I just kind of wanted to give you that. That's a really unusual one. We don't normally bring stats to the board. But this one's worth bringing to the board. And we appreciate both districts and their clarity. It's been a big help. So, if any of you would like to go directly behind Mr. Peck and stand between the two flags, you can see why 5371 is on the agenda. Mr. Wells is an operations guy. He's probably already noticed. There's a serpentine cut in the carpet when they laid it in this room. You can even see it up in here. It was old school when they put it in. With all the settling of this building, it's no longer one piece. It's a trip hazard and it really can't be fixed without ripping the whole thing out. And we are going to use the building fund carryover. You look out at what was done in the museum today, we're going to do the same type thing in here and it will be ready for you when you come in May. But just wanted to share that with you. The low price was again the company that did the museum. I think it's going to be around 11 grand. It's certainly within the capital budget right now. But it is, when I saw a couple of you tripping on it in January, literally tripping on it, it was time to quit hoarding and let's get it fixed. And it will be the squares to where if we get a spill, we can fix. And all of you that built buildings know how good those are. That kind of thing. I know that's more detailed than you probably wanted, but the other thing is, well, how in the world the seating requirement got in there, but that should not be on there because we've already talked about that. That should be the part of basketball. 538, the update on our ESSER. ESSER is the KDE money that has been pledged. Chad has begun working. We were hoping we could just seamlessly do this, but there's new, speaking of electronic software, there's new software that the government uses for federal money that requires organization names and codes to match electronically, and humans can't intervene. They did that, frankly, because of all the fraud that happened during 2012. Well, we are registered with our Secretary of State for the foundation. The KHSAA is not recognized or not registered with the Secretary of State because we're not required to be. We've been around so long, we were grandfathered in. But apparently you have to be registered with the Secretary of State to receive the proceeds of the ESSER funds. Technically, they were originally supposed to be spent by September. Those of you in board offices know that's now been extended. So there's a little bit of grace we've got that's going to help us. But we're continuing to get all the receipts together. We're still going to get all the funding, but we're going to have to dot the I with the Secretary of State. And Chad has already got meetings planned with them.
Yeah, it doesn't, you know, it's one of those things where we had originally looked at whether there had been a change in the law and do we have to register? No, it's still a permissive thing. You can do that. It comes with some, benefits and maybe some challenges. But I've already negotiated or not negotiated, navigated the legal aspects, and we can do either way that we want to. We'll be able to accomplish this. I just want to make sure that we work with the Secretary of State's office to make sure that we're not going to have any unintended consequences of anything we do, because that's we've got a long history of being who we are, and it comes with some good history, and I don't want to alter that. So we'll work with the Secretary of State's office, hopefully have those barriers and hurdles removed, and be able to transfer that ESSER fund in the near future.
Under the heading of general reports, we'll fly through these merger schools and splits. I shared with you some information on the Nelson County discussion that's going on in various venues and legal entities. As of now, it is in court whether the Nelson County and Thomas Nelson are going to merge. We don't know when we're going to answer. But we just wanted you aware. You've probably seen that on the news. The other thing, just the oral update, Hopkinsville and Christian County will remain two separate schools until they are no longer two separate schools. They have tabled any discussion of merging early and using two buildings, which they have talked to us about. So as of right now, they are still two schools, will remain two schools. And the last time that Mr. Stovall shared with us, 26, 27, looked like a good opportunity, but we all know how construction goes. It may or may not happen, but we will keep you up to date. The other thing, so you know, we had a lot of discussion last meeting about Cornerstone Christian in Shelbyville. As of the day they emailed Ms. Bridenbaugh, who is our liaison with the new schools, they are not planning on varsity basketball, or at least looking at not having varsity basketball next year, which may allow us to take a little slower consideration of a realignment that you all committed to. Now, I'm gonna say this in front of Jason. He and Jared are true friends of the association, all of our sports. But one tweet got an awful lot of discussion going on at the last meeting, and that's okay, because I now have about 7 plans that people have submitted for the way they would think basketball should be realigned. But would remind you that the action the board took is that we will finish football in May, and then you all will decide if there's further work in this area. But you all will be in control of that decision. If we do further work in that area, then we decide the scope. Now, thankfully, the people in the 6th and 7th region have collectively formed a little group. Maybe they'll have success, maybe they won't, at coming up with a draft. I know that there's been some discussion in the 8th region of potential changes. I want to remind you of the board's historical stance, okay? Now, you are the currently constituted board, you can change anything you want to. But as far as realignment goes, if the realignment keeps everybody in the same region and simply divides up the districts, you've been very willing to let the local group help you with that solution. We kind of went through that a year ago. Okay, that's fine. They're really theirs. When their discussion starts moving somebody else in or out, it's a board discussion. It's not their local discussion. And that's when we normally, we get involved in either way. What we did last year is a model of what we've done for 30. We had something going on, discussion in 4th region, said, okay, we'll come down. We sent staff down there with the board member, facilitated discussion, came back, gave her a proposal, how it would look, went back and talked to them. Wasn't unanimous, never gonna be unanimous. Somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose, but that's the process you all have always done. We are moving forward with that as the presumptive process to where if it gets into, if somebody wants to argue that 3 schools are in with the Louisville schools that are going to go to another region, that's not for their discussion, because that involves everybody. Matter of fact, Bullitt County has already pretty much said they like where they are, travel wise and everything else. They don't want to move. It's helped them travel wise. So you all have been very resistant to, and I'll pick on people because I see them, Brian saying David should move. David comes to you and says, I'd like to move and I've got agreement. You all have been real receptive, but not this move them out, move because there's lots of issues. So we stand ready to support if you decide to do that. Maybe if we continue to confirm by the May meeting, what Cornerstone told us recently or asked about recently, maybe we don't have an immediate fire issue, but we know we've got to address them. And there still may be better solutions that are being proposed. But what happens in the end, just like when you see football maps, you end up, when you look at them on a map, it takes away a lot of arguments. What I think's funny, and I got 2 here that were involved in this, friends in the Jefferson County area. There's been discussions in the past of an alignment, and when everybody puts dots on a map, we all agree this is the best way. Soon as they put names beside those dots and realize what they've done, the unanimity goes away with it. And that's natural. And I would just continue to offer the services of our staff. Frankly, we're the only people in this whole discussion that doesn't have to win a game. So we can just look at maps and try to be objective. You all got to win a game. So if you want help, call. Okay. Anything on that from, I know Claudette attended a meeting of the 8th. Michael's been to a meeting in the 5th. They've all been talking with the 8th and 5th. We know there's a lot of good discussion.
Cornerstone does plan to play volleyball, is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So for scheduling, how would that work for as far as this coming year?
Well, we would make that determination in May, because you just, right now, their thoughts are they're planning, but they don't know the numbers yet. So, and there's, then you just got to look at that. You got a little more flexibility with volleyball than you have with some of the other sports, no doubt. So, but we'll continue to communicate with you and Claudette and everybody else involved in that. Okay. 542 is just a reminder, we announced the Hall of Fame class, outstanding class. I thought that both the selection and screening committees did a really good job, and there's people that one lady told me that she thought people had forgotten about her husband. So it's kind of nice that, you know, even things aren't always perfect everywhere, but you still like to be remembered. And so that's a good group. There's some, I apologize for the lead article, the number one article in the Around the State and Nation. I know that it was not by his personal PR agent, but we do have some things in there. One of the things is the article about the new position that Greg has assumed. And then there's just some information that you might want to know. We've kind of covered, because we needed to, in the schools issue, the follow-up on team alignments, and we would like to ask you in the meeting to accept those reports. You ready to go to number 6, folks?
No.
6.1 are potential proposals. We need to just kind of get an issue out on the floor, and some of the stuff is, they don't get out of order. I'm gonna cover them in right order. 6.11 is the start of golf and wrestling. And I can tell you, we're probably going to come to you with a request or a discussion about some changes or allowances in wrestling to let them start a week early. We do not want to shorten their season. But folks, if we learned anything for 2 or 3 springs following COVID, is we've got to watch when our events overlap. Like it or not, we may think all of our workers are fine if we're having 2 events at a different site. We got 4 of our 9 administrative team members that need to be at both events. And so we've got to try to avoid some overlap, but we do not want to shorten anybody's season. So if they've got 11 weeks, they need to keep 11 weeks. So we'll bring you something finally in May, but we need to really sit down and hash over. And frankly, this weekend, we think we know when the swimming pool is going to be available for UK next year, because it's pretty standard that 3 weeks before the NCAA, they're away with the SEC meet. They don't vote on it each year though, till this week when they're down at their competition. But we think the calendar will start fleshing itself out. Want to tell you an issue that's coming to the board, that may come to the board, depends on what the initial action is. We have had discussion with a school. It's only been oral and it's been cursory, and it needs to be structured a lot more before we bring it to you. But we have had a school ask us about playing a regular season soccer game before the first allowable date. And they're doing that because they're going out of the country in 2025. The board has been really hesitant to authorize any school to get an early jump on everybody else. Maybe there's trade-offs where they lose the game during the regular season. Maybe you all want to entertain that. The last time there was an issue like this was in the early 2000s, like about 2007 maybe. And the problem was that the board felt trapped because the trip was in 2007. And the board felt like the school came in and said, we've already bought all these airline tickets. We've already bought all that. So I can tell you, our staff has told them, don't do that yet, till we see what we're going to do. But what we wanted to hear today was if any of you have opinions, without even knowing who the school is, do you have opinions on people being able to play earlier than others? And does that bother you? Does it, well, we need to consider it because of the educational value of a foreign trip? What's your, because the board's totally turned over since this happened. Matter of fact, twice. 2 weeks, it's barely after practice starts.
It's gonna be just right around the time that practice starts, but probably a good 2 weeks before the first eligible game. So it would be, most likely the games that they would be wanting to play would be inside the scrimmage period, I think,
Right.
is kind of what we anticipate.
So it's multiple games, not just one.
It would be multiple games. They are looking for more than one. It's 3 or 4, and I don't recall which.
Yeah, if you're going overseas, it better be multiple.
And I will say that, yeah, I think that if we look at the commissioner talked about a previous request, and I think you'll find the timeline. I agree that I wasn't here, obviously, that was before my time, the commissioner was, but that request was in May for a trip that was going on in June or July. And obviously, if you're going overseas, I think you bought your tickets before 2 months in advance. So I agree with the commissioner. That's what's before this group and what you guys have to.
We just kind of want to know what you're thinking because, there's certain lines that probably ought to be a bright line. And that's why we have trouble because, when we start squiggling the lines a little bit, but
The actual dates are July the 13th.
so it's actually before the start of practice.
Could that count as towards their limitation seasons?
It-
Could
it-
could you trade that off?
I can.
You could, that's a potential option.
I don't know.
And that's what was done the last time is that they basically gave up anything that they did. I think they were restricted from playing in the first week of the regular season last year, gave up all their scrimmages and then 1 or 2 games for that first week to balance out the thing. I don't know when those games, I mean, that's part of why we need to work with them to get all the information because while the trip takes place on the 13th, I don't know that they would be playing those games on the 13th. But I think that, we need to get that, but we wanted to get some input from you guys so we knew what information to collect from them. I know some board members have been contacted already about that, and that's great. No issue with that. But we want to make sure that we're framing this so that you have enough information to make a decision one way or another. And it's big.
But how do you currently, because I know there's some current allowances built in for the Bluegrass State games, which is in a similar time frame, right?
In the scrimmage window.
But it's a scrimmage window, but you could play beyond. There are a lot of, I cannot remember how those allowances are built in.
I believe it's volleyball and soccer.
Yeah, volleyball, soccer, they don't count.
The third one? Cross country. I knew we added a third. They do not count against the scrimmage limit if it's in the Bluegrass State. And we've always heard objections from the corners of the state who felt like they were at a disadvantage because it's more accessible for the center of the state. I get that. But this is one that basically, even when it was approved, they were told, don't do this to us again. So they're kind of doing what we asked them and bringing it a little bit early before they make the investment in it. There's all kinds of opportunities you have, but you just have to realize what's the precedent you're setting. Do you like the precedent? If you do, no problem.
So if this trip would have been a week earlier.
Well, technically,
If it had been before the dead period, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
correct. If it was a June trip,
Right.
which several of our out of country trips have been, are June trips. But this is actually, I mean, it's off the dead period and it's before practice even starts.
I'm a slippery slope.
We've got insurance questions and everything else that can come up.
So they were allowed, a precedent was set before though, when they were allowed to do it.
They're only because of the timing at that point. It's what that was the board's final decision was because of the timing. They just didn't feel like.
That's their stance for the email to us.
Oh, yes.
This precedent was already set.
Yeah. So basically, if you took that, and I told Chad this, quite frankly, I'll call poppycock on that because that means you just don't have a limitation season. At some point, it was an isolated I guess for every out of country trip, you might have a precedent, but you're, at worse than the Bluegrass games and the 3.5 hour away schools not being able to play in it. There's probably not a lot of schools that can afford to go to Europe and play either. I don't know. Maybe some of you are, I don't know.
So are they taking everybody? When do they make tryouts and make cuts and taking teams?
They are deciding their season, they're deciding their competitors before the first date for tryout. There's a number of issues because of this.
But I think that's something that'll have to be addressed, right? Is the fact that, they may have to open this to even team.
Well, I will be candid and I will tell them when they call. I'm not looking for a way to say yes. Unless you all want yes. I'm really, because it's going to put us in a little bit of a box. At some point, why would you, if you penalize a school, as we did a couple of years ago, an administrator penalized their school because they held trials to it. They penalized the coach because they held trials to it.
Like we say, it's not something that requires action today, but we wanted to introduce it to you. I know the commissioner wanted to give you the ground rules and we can gather any information that you guys want, if you anticipate anything specific.
And we really need to check the technical end of it, because frankly, I think you all need to be the appeal board for a decision made by the office. And that's where we probably need to go next, but we need to make sure that we don't have some codicil somewhere that
Has the coach actually submitted a timeline, like, this is when I would have to have tryouts, this is when I would have to have practice, this is, I mean, so we see like where the, I don't wanna say, I don't wanna call it infraction, but where we see lines are crossed visibly, right? It's not just that the game, like you said, like everybody's mentioned, it's not just that the games are being played early. It moves everything up, right? And To see- I would want to know, because it's such a cool opportunity, and I think it's just the timing of it is terrible. Is there, like, is it possible that they could move it this way or that way, you know, like,
I've already asked that question.
Okay.
I anticipate the answer is no, because it's around a set thing, opportunity over there that it's already set up. And so they don't have that opportunity with that event. I even asked about, well, maybe you don't go to that cup, maybe you go to this cup.
Yeah.
But we can continue to ask that. I don't know that there's opportunities. But I think Mandy, brings up the point, yeah, we can get all of that
I
information
would like to see
in a
something
detailed
where I
request.
certainly don't want to, decide against an opportunity that would be as amazing as this, as you mentioned. I mean, that would be incredible. I'm thinking in terms of, as a, a parent, in terms of the opportunity for my child, right? That would be incredible. But we do have that one.
I think the biggest challenge that we have right now is they haven't even submitted in writing to us. We don't know. They've got a whole lot of things they're putting in an email they circulate to people that are not really down to the granular bit of detail. It's conceptual, and they're gonna have to accelerate that at least.
Me personally, I would have a tough time convincing myself that I eliminated 15 kids from having a unique opportunity in their high school experience. But at the same time, I would think they would need to follow exact protocol. If it's 14 days before the season, in 14 days, they should have rosters, tryouts, it should all be done. I don't think we should deviate from that one day. And then they're gonna have to, everything's got a cost. So, well, you're gonna be out 2 weeks in the regular season, whatever the case may be. I just, I know we've gotta do what we've gotta do in terms of athletics. Well, I'd have a tough time looking at 15 kids and sets of parents and the school board saying I've taken away an opportunity. I can walk around this room and probably not find 3 districts in there that sent kids overseas in a trip that was paid for, that was a pretty unique opportunity.
I think you're hitting on the decision point. I think number one, when you make a decision, when a decision is made like this, you have to ask, why do we have the rule? And should there be any deviation from that? And what you're gonna be balancing on that is the opportunity. In this instance, the educational experience opportunity. And does that warrant that? I mean, that's what's really gonna be argued. And I think that's what you guys need to ponder and give us feedback, and then ultimately we'll get the information as the commissioners directed and go from there.
I think the biggest thing is we needed to hear from you. I mean, those concerns are valid. That's what we didn't know. If everybody sat there and didn't say anything, then that's a whole different question.
Like Dave said, though, you start going down a slippery slope. And now, as other sports, we got a basketball tournament in Canada we can go to, or this, out of season, or we're going to Central America to play baseball. And because you have the haves and the have-nots across the state that have the finances to be able to do this, where we're never going overseas and playing.
It sounds like a great opportunity for a club team to form and go to that trip and not be attached to a school, to be honest with you.
That's one of the questions that I asked Chad to talk about first. We've got to figure out what this event is too.
Because if
Is it just schools?
if you open a tryout window for one school sooner than everybody else, you all need to take the phone off the hook. For a week here. Cause it's gonna come. People are gonna be like, wait a minute, they get to start tryouts before we do, they get to do this before we do, you're gonna be building calls for a while. And then the doors
You got
open.
the dead period there too, so you got a safety issue also, so the result of the dead period is a couple of days. Are those kids gonna play 80-minute games over there, 3 games? I mean, are they ready physically to do that? So that's another thing. I mean, the dead period is right there with resumption. I mean, you're not going to do it there January 13th. So that's another thing to consider as well.
And would travel be in the scrimmage window by the time they did play?
Question.
Yeah, we don't even know the event and exact structure. That's our problem.
Yeah, that's.
It's all been a conceptual.
The trip starts on the 13th, but I don't know. I would think so. I think we've got some good starts to the information that we'll collect and collect that information and I'll work with the commission.
Good. Okay. While we headed here. It's not clear cut. Okay.
I would think that at this point in time, I don't think it needs to be discussed any further until we see something in the school.
We don't-
You get it to us, we'll make a decision from there.
Just let it
We'll
go
talk
up.
about, yeah, all we're doing now is just stirring pots.
But I think just hearing some of the decision points and the things that you guys are gonna find important is gonna.
Russ has already looked at 15 things. I can see the right on the wall here.
We'll start calling the parents as soon as I get off the phone.
Gotta start raising money, buying tickets.
That's right.
613 is a late addition to the agenda. Late last week, we started getting several inquiries from this. And I had 3 or 4 of you ask me this question. Our Board of Control election procedures in the Constitution, other than disqualifying people that retire and try to sit out 90 days, haven't changed in 40 years. Timelines and everything else come from a day that everything was done by mail. You had to wait, you had postmark deadlines, et cetera. Several of you have asked about, do we want to offer something that would offer the delegates a chance to shorten those windows? Because it gets challenging. We can make anything work. But the nomination window generally is open from the start of from the football playoffs ending all the way till January 31st. I mean, that's 5-7 weeks. Is that really needed? And then we've got 2 weeks. It has to be out by the 15th, but for the ballots, but we try to get them out a couple days early in case we get snow, in case we get stuff like that. Do we really need to worry about snow and electronic? So what do you all think it should be? Is there interest, first of all, in tightening those deadlines? And if there is a week enough, is 10 days enough? What do you think it should be?
I would be in favor of shortening that time period, allowing that 2 weeks. We know I think we talked about this before, we have half of them that vote that morning. Since the ballots are out, the other half just drag their feet. Somebody's got to remind them, oh, by the way, you haven't voted yet. So I think the week's plenty. Technology the way it is now, if we have that window, it comes out on Monday, and you have to have it done by a certain time on Friday.
See, you could theoretically do first 2 weeks of February for nominations, the last week of February for voting, and have it all done by March 1st, and not even do it till after that point. I mean, that's again, a little more to get the nominations, but the voting, you get people out, click a button. Because even if we're not using our current system, we're going to have a button click process of voting that doesn't attribute who voted for who. We already know we got something lined up. So if nobody objects, should we bring you back final wording in May? Or something that just tightens those windows? Just use most February?
I think so. It's a long time.
The only thing that makes me pause is not on the voting window as much as the nomination window, because I don't know if 2 weeks is an adequate amount of time for people to consider who to be nominated, and then all of a sudden, because you're gonna not only want to know who's on the ballot, but also get some, if I'm voting for somebody, it's 2 weeks enough for me to learn enough about who I want to vote for in that election. You know what I mean?
The weekend between, all right?
You want to?
The weekend between the nominations and before election starts. Right?
Yeah, right now, if you did February, you got 2 weeks, 1 week, 1 week. You could do January for nominations, skip a week to get everything processed and vote the second week of February and be done. Whatever you think. I mean, we need this to help you all. You could just say it's going to start after Christmas. So January is the nomination period and the election's second full week of February. I mean, does that offend anybody? We just want to get it written for you all. Okay. Okay. Tara's no longer allowed to miss, because I've got 2 or 3 things out of order in this agenda. 711 is, the minutes will come to that. 712 in the full meeting will be the election of the president and president-elect. 713 will be approval of the report we talked about earlier. with the technology steps. Officials fees is 714. This is the year we examine soccer and football. You've got a recommendation, I think in one of each of those, it increases the fee $5 and the other one increases it 10. We are still, if you look at the link, and I encourage you to keep up with that, and Mr. Bottoms will keep that data updated for you all to see. But we're not exactly the top dog on officials pay. We've done better with our postseason, but regular season, we're kind of depending upon our local areas to put that mileage piece in there. I can tell you, the state of Tennessee just approved, they're going to be paying a 5-person football crew $120 a head, plus $10 mileage if you're going less than 60 miles and $20 if you're going more. I mean, it's going to be a big budget hit for their school. But they're having to move games around because of lack of officials. We haven't so far. So we're just proposing a modest, like we've been doing, $5 on one. Basically, it would be a 2-person soccer fee would go to 95. Isn't that right, Bruce? And then the 3-person soccer fee would be 75. And then the 7-person football will be 75 and the 5-person go to 85. So, and then districts still add on them all. So you're still going to be less than a lot of states, but it's a good step. Scott, you got anything to add from what you've heard from other states? Go for anything?
Yeah, I think the last increase the Commissioner mentioned, we did it in the postseason, so it's been a while, even before COVID.
Correct. For these two. Yeah, these two we didn't do anything with last time. We changed postseason. The other one is 715. We shared this with you in January, but we're asking for us to be able to plan the budget and execute the hire. We're asking for permission to go ahead and advertise and post the 5th assistant commissioner position. I can tell you with us taking on 2 lacrosses and an additional volleyball and just everything that's been added, we gotta have some help. We've shared that with you. We're finally at a maxed out point as far as what we think we can support. The job listing was attached in January, it was attached again. We'd like to get that out about the first part of March. And then see what happens.
Only work 12 hours a day. What they do today.
You go about 365. The one thing I will share with you that has been the past precedent on the board that you'll just have to decide, because I don't think anybody, I don't know. You'd have to tell me if anybody in here might be interested in one of these positions, but in the past, when that happened, the board members had to resign from the board to seek a position. So just so you know, that's been done multiple times. Just felt like it didn't want to put either the commissioner or the board in a position of potential conflicts. So we'll ask you to approve that in the regular. Team tennis. Next, the last item. The team tennis item. I mentioned earlier in the reports, and Joe had mentioned in his report, that we're trying to finalize both the schedule for team tennis and the second site for the first day of the individual singles and doubles. And all we're asking is you just authorize us to execute the agreements. We have some discussions coming up in Madison County, who's held it before. Our second site, it's been our second site for a while, at different times we've needed it, is Chilton Park in Lexington. They're undergoing significant construction right now, they're not available. So basically, having it close enough to where if a coach happened to coach both genders, they can get back and forth for transportation. So we're looking local. Now, last item. Recapped for you what the past protocol has been with aligning the football teams into classes. So this is what's been done. And if it's incorrect, we'll need to fix that before we start talking about specifics. Basically, we use the enrollments of males in 22-23 and 23-24, and that 2-year average ranks the schools. And the way the classes were divided, per your direction, is that the top 30 teams in male enrollment plus Christian County and Hopkinsville were assigned to be 6A. So 6A remains at 32 teams through playoff, if you approve this. The draft places and this is where you're gonna have some discussion. One of the flex points for you to talk about in 6A is the placement of Meade County High School. You remember? They were placed in a 14 district and they appealed that, and the board said at that point, let's look at it in 2 years. We committed to them, we'd look at it when we did it this year. The draft that you have before you puts them in a 5-team district and leaves a 3-team district in Louisville. And then that 5th place team rotates up to fill the playoff spot. That's a practice you've done for a number of years. Started out, I think some of the report, I know Jason can remember, we had 3 districts in Louisville, they were paired with Northern Kentucky, and we used to rotate which ones paired together. We've been doing this for years, trying to get it to where the brackets were symmetrical and they didn't have to play each other, same teams every year. So that sister district, and I'll tell you something before you look at the geography of it. You all defining that they're going to play the adjacent district. The 1, 2, then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Some of them got renumbered, so they weren't traveling over top of each other. The 2 adjacent districts are played. So somebody might have not, the district composition may not have changed, but they're now District 6 instead of District 5. It's just because once you made that decision, we need to travel for those first 2 rounds to be a factor. Okay, so there's nothing crazy in it. So, and we would continue to recommend to you that 3, 4, and 5 be alternating. So you got 32 teams in 6A, 39 teams in 5A, 39 teams in 4A, 40 in 3A, and 40 in 2A. 34 are in 1A. The reason for 34 is 2 of the smallest schools, who have been kind of perennially pulling out of the playoffs, are placed in that district because geographically they should be. The 3-team district involving Pikeville would pick up Jenkins and Phelps when you look at the alignment. We would still want to, when you adopt this in May, still have the provision that if their district gets down to 3, we would swing that 5th place team from the district around Harlan Pineville to re-bracket the playoff. But right now, they'd be a 5-team with only 4 qualifying. And so would the 1 and 8 as the way it's drafted. Trying to give you some insurance against buys. I know I talked, I didn't get to talk. I got to listen to the principal at one of the Class A schools in this room who talked about the fact they've kind of lost their first round opponent the last couple of years and the difference it makes. So we want to try to keep the brackets full if we can. But those 2 teams, Jenkins and Phelps, have withdrawn the last couple of years. After the draft is released, if you approve one today, after it's released, we then ask the schools who wants to pull out of playoffs. And you're out for the 2 years, which answers one of the questions from Matt's AD. Now that you're doing a 2-year alignment, they can pull out for just 2 years. Right? There's no plan. I don't have any plan. You all tell me if it changes. No plan to ask people if they want to play to a higher class. I thought you voted that last year pretty unanimously, and if card laid's card played, so brackets stay full. If that's the case, we can allow a couple of weeks for comments. Do I have a geographic problem? And then going forward, if the district falls below 4 teams, a plan would place that team in a class that's got at least 32 to swing a 4th. Let's try to eliminate that. Okay, that's all part of the first one. And then you see that the order of the football school male enrollment is listed as that first attachment. So at some point, you have to decide before you get into specific schools, and I repeat something I said earlier about basketball. Everybody likes looking at maps of circles till they see names on them. And once you start seeing names on them, you might have some discussions. So that's where you get to look at it. We'll publicly release this. Right now, by class release, when we come back to the full meeting, we'll have total, everything's public. I told you all, we committed when we met with the officers, we want you all to see the alignment part. And we've done that. Now it's public.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
So these maps, I know we got into this the last time, we look at it on a map and it's one thing, but you look how long it takes to get from one place to another is obviously totally different when we get in the mountain regions of Eastern Kentucky. So I assume that these maps are done surely on geography, or have we looked at those travel times because of the way they have to get?
When we go class by class, you're going to see that the travel time was looked at because there's a couple that may look like they belong right here. There's really no way to get that.
Okay.
And that was one of the strong arguments that CD made about the Harlan, and it was accurate.
Right.
It really was, that you need to consider that travel's different.
Right.
In different parts of the state. Scroll down, and that brings you to 723, which is what it would actually look like on a map. And Rob has the link available, and Rob, if that last parameters equals 8, it just about fits on the screen. And then you can show individual classes. But if you start looking at the different districts in that class, one of the things that these maps are all shared with you. It's in the rationale, I believe. You should be able to see the maps. But when you look at them and you click on a district, it'll highlight it for you. So Rob, if you don't mind, click on in the grid on the left, click on District 1, and it highlights those schools that are there. And they can use, like this one uses the WK Parkway as a primary path up toward Elizabethtown. 2 takes you there, and you see why they're second. So you can see that the pods of teams are there that will be playing each other in draft. So the question for you all, I know you want some time socially, and we're about ready to take lunch break anyway, but at some point we need to take a look at these class by class. Maybe we do that during the full meeting and see if somebody said, hey, let's put this one here, put this one here, and we get time to prepare the final product and get it out to the school. You have made this process really close to set it and forget it, because by not allowing to play it up and not allowing somebody to allegedly say that it's their turn to play up this year, it's so-and-so's turn to play up this year. Tried to keep the districts, other than the district involved in manual, tried to keep them to 4 schools, and there's a couple as high as 6. But when you start looking, is it 2A, I believe, or 3, one of them, when you start looking at west of the time zone, there may be more teams. And there may be teams pull out of the playoffs because they don't want to play certain teams. But it's just an objective draft from people that don't have to win games.
So is there a discussion right now, or are we saying discussion after?
I think you can do it either way. I think you do it either way.
You know, obviously, I'm going to speak about 6A, because I could have swore when we did the alignment last time that we agreed that we would have 4 given districts across the board. As a matter of fact, I've looked through every class in this entire proposal, and there are no other districts that are 3-team districts in every other class combined. And I hear, and it's not that I want somebody specifically in our district. The reality of it is I don't want a 3-team district. And because what ends up happening is we will not most likely, and I think I speak for the other 2 schools, for Ledridge Park and St. Xavier, that we will not want to have a 3-team district. And part of the reason is we're not going to have opportunity to play 10 games, because everybody else in the state will have a district game on the week that we're not playing somewhere during those district games. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be Lee County. It can be looked at another way, and another school would come into that district. But I don't think we should have 4 teams. I don't think we should have districts with less than 4 teams across the board of all classes and districts.
Okay.
For me,
Now, who would be that?
The Meade trip to Daviess County is obviously a long trip. The Meade trip to South Warren, it's not really a competitive thing, but I know from the feedback from you all before, David is exactly right. There was desire to keep 14 districts where possible. And regardless of, I think the concerns last time, if I'm not mistaken, were brought up kind of at the last minute. And you may choose to, again, if you all want to move, obviously the trip to Daviess is longer than the trip to any one of the 3 Jefferson County schools. They've also had a year of play. It may be some of the Some died down.
Is this model to accommodate needs requests when they came to us previously?
Yes. And it's just a starting point for discussion. Easily could, I mean, in 2 clicks, put them somewhere else. You know, one of the options, it could split the Hardin County, which is straight up I-65. Logistically, it, you know, somebody might, or something, you down that close to that area, probably a closer trip from North Hardin to Manual Mail and St. X. But that's what you need to tell us. Yep. I think you need that. That's the only, other than the potential for 1A 8 to have those 2 schools that routinely pull out again. That's the only real one you couldn't get. If you recognize Meade's original request, it's the only one you couldn't have both of them. Hey, listen, it's winners and losers.
You can't fix that. Because there's nobody to move those things around. To take it from the deputy, so.
But if you're gonna make the decision for 6A to go strictly 14, we've got to do it across the class.
Well, it's already the case.
Yeah, the other classes, there is not one at this point, unless Jenkins and Phelps pull out.
The entire state of Kentucky.
But if Jenkins and Phelps pull out, there will be 3 team districts.
And the problem is, in reality, the contradiction of what was done last time between those 2 situations. We agreed that we didn't want to make the geographically closer team to District 8 have to play regular season over there. So we said for regular season, we leave a 5 and 3, but then that's 1A, but in 6A, we insisted it be 4-4. We just need to know.
But if I'm not mistaken, single, I think I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, if that was a factor, yes, they did. Everybody in both districts
Right.
agreed, because the schools in 8 didn't want to travel either.
Right.
You did not have agreement in the 6A.
Right.
This is a micro example of the issue you're gonna face if you do a wholesale realignment in other programs.
Yeah.
Be ready.
What do you think, Dave? What's options or what would you recommend?
You know, there's 32 teams in 6A.
Yep.
It's multiple for.
Is that why we?
Pretty easy. We need to put 4 teams in each district. I don't really care who's in each district. Obviously, we can start from the west and go east, we can go east and go west, but we should have 4 teams in each district.
Is that why 32 teams are in 6A? Is that why that number chose this as?
Yes, so that everybody was full and nobody, the 33rd school did not want to play 6A.
And I've been in the district with St. X, Male, and Trinity. I was in the super district. I told everybody in here, my nickname was the 4 seed for many years. I don't really care who's in what district, but they need to be 4 team districts.
Just for scheduling issues.
I think you have to get one on the schedule.
Because you all that have scheduled football, the hardest schedule that anybody puts together is their football schedule. And if everybody else is in district play, it's going to be a challenge for the 3-team district to try to find a game on those open weeks in those district weeks, if that makes sense. I don't know, you're gonna be looking out of state, because everybody else is gonna have a district game for the most part, unless there's a team with an odd number, a district with an odd number, who's willing to play us at that point.
Or your open week has to fall that way. Your open week would have to.
Right.
Now, it takes all, the good thing is, any of those scheduling situations, you've now got a year to plan. The bad thing is, this one is a challenge. And you all may not think it is, but the kind of, if maybe the school consensus is the tiebreaker, but we kind of did 2 different things a year ago. Year and a half ago, so whatever. We don't have skin in this game.
But I also think like, this kind of leads to, I mean, just talking to a lot of the coaches and athletic directors, areas that I'm representing, while they want 2-year scheduling and not 4.
Exactly.
We're doing everything 2 years and not 4, because there's a situation where they're just can't be competitive. Like 4 years, I mean, you can basically ruin a program where they have no participation because they're getting a brain scan every week. there, you know, maybe 2 years, like, you can still build that up somewhere, you think, some will be better.
I may be misguessing. Before we advance this, do you want to move Meade back where they are now with that 3 Louisville team? Listen, we need to get you something moving.
That's where they were, right?
That's where they are right now. Correct.
Traditionally, for years, they have been. Hard.
Exactly. This is where they were. Four, I guess 3 of the teams are 5th region, 1's 3rd, and 1's 4th. It's a west of the, but it's a split time zone, so.
Right, and then,
They wanted to be somewhere.
you know, so Butler was 6A. Butler used to be in that district.
They were the ones.
They've dropped to 5. But then I also sit here and look, at some point when this Christian County Hopkinsville merger occurs, that's gonna reshuffle everything.
Absolutely,
That's
because
why
you're gonna have to pull another
We'll have
school up.
another team that gets pulled west, right? Until
Correct. You gotta have another team in 5A go up.
enrollment in school size is gonna continually change, and every 2 years, we need.
If
to
I'm
look
not,
at it.
if I'm not mistaken, the biggest 5A school in the list is the school in Owensboro. So that transition may actually work. But it ain't guaranteed if it's not guaranteed if somebody's enrollment change. I mean, the beauty of the 2-year deal is you can address situations immediately. The con is, as Ms. Hudson asked last time, you've got movement. Less movement than you do every 4, but you got movement.
I'm not asking for Meade County to be in that district. I'm asking for those to be 14 districts and for however, typically teams would be put in a district to put the 14 in that district if it happens to be Meade County or it happens to be another school. The Meade County piece is not relevant. I think we need 4 teams each district in 6A.
One thing that would come up if you ever do a statewide realignment, there's one thing the board and staff cannot control, and that's where buildings are built. And that's the hard part. You kind of want to address it in a Solomon form. You can't help where buildings are built. There's people that didn't like the fact Great Crossing's having to go north. But you can't help it. It was the northernmost school in the area.
So what would make most sense?
If-
Applying to what we use, what standard, what would make?
If you were going to have, to insist on 4 teams per district, you put Meade where they are right now. Because I think even the North Hardin mix is, it's a coin flip between those 2, but you probably wouldn't want to separate central and north if you could help it. You put them right where they are right now.
I mean, we're here when Meade County came to us 2 years ago. Who wasn't here?
Mandy and Randy.
I mean, what did we exactly promise Meade County?
That had you would have looked at different options if their response had been more timely, but you probably would have still had 4 teams in each district.
And we talked
That's fair.
about Warren Central moving up and Barron County moving up.
See, their concern expressed was that the people playing up caused this. I think this proves that really isn't true.
I think we had another scenario in a different class in a different part of the state where we made some changes, but every school involved.
Yeah, that was the one angle. Yep.
That everybody, all schools involved in how it's gonna land were in agreement, and that is not the case here.
Correct. It's like lunchtime conversation. And you need that. You need some time to kind of, maybe somebody's thought of a different issue. I think we don't have a preference other than get a draft out. Yeah.
Don't want to separate North Hardin and Central Hardin. What was your reasoning for not wanting to separate North and Central?
From one end,
Not wanting to
just
separate?
same school district, trying not to, but you know what? You've got Jefferson County schools in 3
We
different.
got 3 different.
You got kids.
We got 3 different.
No,
regions.
Kenton County's in 3 different regions on the back.
North Hardin is actually close.
If you map it.
If you map it.
If you, depending on which road you take, it is.
I mean,
Yeah.
I just Googled
Yeah,
that.
it is. It's what, 6 miles?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
6 miles,
Cause I looked at it yesterday.
It's not different.
And that would, yeah, that would still allow Meade and Davies, that are both in the third basketball region, to stay together. By 6 miles, like you say, technically it's shorter.
I mean, I'm a superintendent, some superintendent. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to have my two schools in my district in separate districts, have an opportunity to maybe take a winner personally. Or
Tim Hanner gets the world record for that when he was superintendent in Kenton County and wrote 3 notes disagreeing with the basketball draft and went up there and showed him. He was like, I'm all in. I'm all in. I got 3 chances.
That's true. That's just, right? Like I deal with people right now, one time, they are gonna lose their mind if we do a realignment and they're not together.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's all about
So it's just about it, like.
meaningful games. I look at meaningful games. I mean, Trimble and Eminence that's a huge game for
Big
those
time.
communities, right? They're separated. And Fort Trimble with Northern Kentucky teams that mean nothing, right? So, you know, I don't know.
Why is the fourth, question for me, but why is it 14? Like, cause I get it. If we do 32 teams, I think it's 4 makes. It's hard for us to go explain that out in the public if it's not the case. But why is that so important at the 6A level and not at, like, cause I look at the other maps and you have some 6A, you have, or 16 districts, you have some 14 districts. So why is it so important that one level? This year is a learning moment from them.
Scheduling.
I think it is scheduling. The 6A schools arguably have the tougher time scheduling compared to everybody else.
That makes sense.
Nobody wants to play them. Then you got that whole,
Makes sense.
you got more open week.
There are not fewer teams in
What else
1A
is
and 6A.
I'm sorry.
There's fewer teams in 1A and 6A.
Purposely, yes, because the enrollment variances are so much greater in the 1A schools and the 6A schools.
That's why we have larger districts in the other.
Yeah, 'cause you can be 3 and 4 times the size of another school and both of you be in 1A. And at least in football, you've got it balanced in terms of number of boys. It's really bad when you start looking at overall. Thing.
We're talking about.
A couple times they've been in 5, but they were biggest since they were in 4. That's the moment had not.
So they don't, that's why they don't want to go.
I think they dropped the 1 alignment. Yeah. Very cool.
motion next to again, we can just take a break, take a 30-minute break.
It's the end, it is the end of the work session too.
For discussion.
No, but you can still finish this issue if you want to take a break right now. Take a recess. Whatever you want to do.
If we want to discuss it, but we want to discuss it, or you can, what they can prepare, they can prepare the regular agenda for the regular meeting.
Need a motion to adjourn the work session? Angela, second. Randy, all in favor? Yeah, all right. Either one.